Okay, we're off mute. Everyone can hear me? Cool. Righto, back in. Reconvene the meeting at 5:51, and we will carry on now with public forum. And we have one speaker today, which is Alan Donaldson, to speak about Westport water supply. Alan, floor is yours. 5 minutes, and you wanted the whiteboard. So those on screen won't be able to see your whiteboard. So they won't. Oh, they probably won't pick it up anyway, I don't think.
Right, the reason I'm here is because I need your help actually as councillors. Very important. Right. And the council buildings up there, we have a group of good men who are very positive, and they are, we can talk about the Northern Branch. I've talked about 3 times now over a journey of 8 years, and they can see the positives of it getting closer and closer. The reason being is they found an old tunnel that comes across to the Northern Branch over here. This is the intake, where our first tunnel, and all the positive things that happened over the last few years have been brilliant. There's a brand new pipe from there all the way to McKenna Road. Amazing what's happened in this little town. Brilliant, positive stuff. The last step, we go from here to there, and once that's done, we'll have the water we used to have 50, 60 years ago. It was all neglected by councils in the past. It should have never happened. Now I can see a positive team here. So they've looked at it and they're going to investigate this end. And I'm quite sure I saw when I was about 14 a wooden frame there, right on the river. What happened when we had the big flood? It all came down and covered it in rocks, right? Also, the bench that I spoke about, they've cleaned that off now. So if the tunnel wasn't an option, a water pipe, a huge one like that, right round to that, to the Northern Branch, would pull all the water we need, what we used to have. What else we got? We don't want to look at flat hoses and we don't want to look at pumps, but they always cost money, and we always pay an electrician to maintain them. He gets the money, we don't get the water. Also, when you think about it, you have to think seriously about it, because the Northern Branch, the water now in that Northern Branch is really, really good. And I know sometimes we hear about the Southern Branch being unstable. Well, what happens over 100 years ago, there was a massive washout and it cleaned them all out. It all built up again and the flood cleaned it all out for us. We're in the right time now to run the pipe around to the Northern Branch, which is the Arroway River. And that'll give us all the water we need. I'm quite sure. But it needs to have your backing, and I've spoken to the men who are involved in this, and they can see it's a very positive thing, and they would like to see it to be a go. Even the surveyors who had a look said it would be a go. But it needs the financing and the backing of the guys in the council who are on this. They need to have the support, and they need to have the money that would actually do it. That would, in the end, when that was put in there, you wouldn't have to pay for maintenance. All you have is the men that work there. They would check it out. But all the other groundwork has been done. We even have a road now that goes round into the Northern Branch that used to be there, so they can drive right around. That's been put back also and make it work. So the reason I'm here is we need your backing as councillors. And right now in history, you will make a change. And I know you can, because man, there's been some good things. People might think around Westport, not a lot of positive things get done. What do you think about it? Nearly 6 miles of pipe right to Westport. No leaks all the way there. Eliminated probably thousands of litres. We have good positive people, so I'd like you to support it. Don't let this one go.
Thanks, Alan. So I'll open up really for questions. So just a quick one from me. So the old tunnel that they've rediscovered, did that actually carry water, or did they try it and it didn't work? Or what was the story?
They tried to, but because it was so unstable under there.
Aye.
So now you can see why these guys run around the foot of the ridge and And I remember when I was 14, I saw water flow out of there around into the southern branch. Yeah, and down the pipe.
So is the tunnel of a similar sort of shape and size as what the other tunnels were?
At the beginning, it's sort of square, they dug out and they found all timber in there at the beginning.
Yeah.
And what they want to do is, if you had a team like Brighton and Hadley, they could drill straight through that tunnel. Yeah. Yeah. No trouble. And they've been up there and had a look, and about 8 others, we went up there and had a good look one day. Yeah. It is our best option. You could drill holes all over Westport, but remember, a lot of land, farmland's been sprayed with urea, superphosphate, lime, and where does it go? Down in your water supply like Canterbury.
Any other questions?
Clean as water.
Councillor Sampson.
What is the length of the pipe?
I think it might be about 800 and something metres. Yeah, I think so, but I could be possibly wrong. You have to talk to Dave Runting or Mr. DeWard.
Councillor Reedy on the Zoom.
And thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the chair, Alan, I understand you've made, it's Colin Reedy speaking. You've made mention about the Northern Branch, and from my recollection, council have said that it's been explored and it's going to cost too much. So you've now mentioned again the Northern Branch. So where do you think the reintroduction of the Northern Branch will still outweigh the fact that it's been looked at before and being considered the cost too much?
Well, there's about 3 main reasons. The Yarraway River was actually cleaned right out, right down to rock level. They even found the old original weir that the old fellas put in. And also, now we have a bench right round, we can run a pipe around there. Also, the tunnel, they've discovered that there was a tunnel that went in there. And the best option now is either go through the tunnel, once they clean the other end out if they find it, or you run a pipe around the bench. Now's the perfect time for it. And the men who are looking at this, the bore and so forth, even they agree this will be a cracker option.
Okay, any other questions, Councillor?
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Alan.
I'll sit down.
Yep, well done.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks for the art too.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the end for public forum. We will, I will seek to bring the Carnegie item forward, just because we've got obviously some people here interested, but we will just quickly deal with these couple of procedural ones. I think they'll be simple enough. We'll come back to that one in yellow. Okay. So agenda item 3, confirmation of minutes. So we have minutes there from a regulatory and hearings committee, which no longer exists, that just need to be confirmed by us, and then the minutes from our last meeting on the 24th of April. So are there any matters of correction required to either of those sets of minutes? Let's deal with the regulatory and hearings ones first. Appears to be nothing there. And we'll go any for the last meeting of council on the 24th of April. Okay, nothing heard there, so we will, someone like to move that we confirm those minutes. Councillor Howard, seconded Deputy Mayor Basher. All those in favour? Any against? That's carried unanimously, thank you. Okay, agenda item 4 is the action point list. What have we got on there? Anything for this meeting? No, so they're all for updating 26th June or 18th of December. So Councillor Reedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 2 points if I may, please. One, we have a new corporate services manager starting. I'm not sure if the name that's on there, D. Marshall, will still be here on the 24th or 26th of June. That's the first thing. Secondly, we have a enhanced annual plan that is due to be adopted by about the 26th of June, and there's no indication as to how these action points, or two of the action points, will be, in fact, three of them, in fact, Bram House as well, will be included, or how they're included in the EAP. So where do we stand with the dates? There seems to be overlapping dates on here. One in terms of D. Marshall and the CSM to be appointed or to start, and two, the EAP.
So the action point 26, the Borough House one, council resolved that be kicked into the next long-term plan. So that's not an EAP matter. So that's why the date is as far out as it is. The other two, the Douglas Marshall matter is, I mean, it's fair, I think, to assume that the incoming CFO will pick up everything Douglas Marshall was responsible for.
Correct.
So where it says D. Marshall, when the new guy starts, read Paul Newman. So the impact of those two action points on the EAP itself, I'll look to staff for.
The impact of those action points on the EAP.
What are we talking about here? I have to read them now. See what they're about.
The campground.
Yeah. Campground wastewater treatment plant. What's that one say? So isn't that external funding? So it's TIF funding for action point 24. So that would have limited impact on enhanced annual plan, wouldn't it? Yeah. So neither of those propose any change to the budgets, Councillor Reedy, in answer to your question.
Well, they do, because the 796 was included in the 23-24 annual plan, and I'm not sure if that's been carried forward, has it, into 24-25? If you look at the a budget of 796 was included, top line.
Yeah.
Right.
We'll come back to you on that, Councillor. We'll confirm.
Okay.
We'll respond by email.
We don't have the CFO in the room,
Yeah.
so we're a bit hamstrung on technical what's in and what's out.
Well, but all I see at the moment, Mr. Mayor, if I can just say, is that we have an overlap. We would have adopted the annual EAP by that time, and I'm just not sure where the 796 is sitting at the moment.
Right. Okay. I think what we can do is circulate a response to that via email.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay.
And there won't be another meeting of council prior to the 26th of June at this stage. So that's all we can do there, Councillor.
Understand.
Any other questions on the action points? Okay, somebody like to move them, Councillor O'Keefe. I'm happy to second. All those in favour? Any against? That's carried unanimously. Okay, now I will bring forward, we will now deal with agenda item 6, which is the Carnegie Library status report. And I'll look to Mel Sutherland to talk us through the report. And we have in attendance members of the Carnegie CCC, Carnegie Cultural Centre Incorporated. Correct. Well done. Well done, Mr. Mayor. To answer any questions or talk about the proposal from that group's work, who are working on a voluntary basis to bring that building back to its former glory. Mike, you're going to speak? Nice. So So Group Manager Infrastructure Services, Mike Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kia ora koutou, good evening, everybody. Firstly, I just wanted to recognise the work and activity towards the future options of the Carnegie Library here in Westport. In particular, the members of the Carnegie Cultural Centre and community representatives. Thank you for all the efforts that you've been involved with. Also to council staff and team members. In particular, Mr. Mel Sutherland, who's the author of this report. And I may ask Mel to assist with questions if there are any after this brief introduction. I also wanted to recognise this opportunity and what it may present to the community and share an optimistic outlook in terms of what's required and in particular the progress for the seismic strengthening, which is the fundamental need of the building. Any refurbishment related to future purpose benefits, that's all related, should that be council's will. If I can come to the draft recommendations, in particular number 2 in this report, and just to emphasise the way that the report is written is on the basis that council will seek to continue with the project planning in collaboration with the Carnegie Cultural Centre Incorporated Group. This is important to note because if council did not wish to proceed further, then staff would need to return with a separate report, as of course we would need to discuss and consult with the Carnegie Cultural Centre members beforehand to allow exchange of views and review of options. And to that end, just looking at recommendation number 2, I would suggest the last words of that, which say or stop the project, may be removed for the purposes of this report. So in basic terms, it wouldn't be expected a resolution of council today would involve stopping the project. That would have to be a separate consideration that staff would need to move into and come back to council if that's the direction provided. Just to be clear on that point. And recommendation number 3 sets out a series of steps A to E, which we consider appropriate and would be working in collaboration with the Carnegie Cultural Centre over the next stage. So in summary, staff have assessed the need to reset the project initiation phase. We have sought legal opinion on relevant matters and considerations so that the sequential steps could be set up for success. We've identified the need to have a detailed project plan that based on that legal opinion would be prioritised into an organised and structured methodology. And if approved, we would identify those activities and deliverables required for the external funding application component. Because it's our view that without the funding, there actually isn't a project, recognising that the council contribution is not the full amount needed for the most recent of quantity surveying estimates for the build. We also believe that a formal joint project steering group should be considered and established, representing both parties, and to build on what may be resolved as the effectively the newly adopted MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, should council accept that. We think that the steering group would need terms of reference and clear delegations and reporting back through council for all key decisions. That's one of the most important aspects we think is needed to reset the project for success. We also think that the project schedule critical path must prioritise the external funding component, that is to organise the activities such that we know very clearly what the funding application requires, and then set our minds to attend to those matters first and foremost, again, so that that process of funding application can proceed. And ultimately, to ensure that once we have a position of clarity and confirmation on funding, that would be an ongoing reporting process through that steering group back to council for the following steps and processes. So with that summary and the report presented as read, open to questions, and again I may seek assistance from Mr. Sutherland to that detail.
So before we dive into questions, do you want to say anything, Mr. Graham, in terms of the view of your group, really, and where it's got to, or?
Well, thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for the work that Mel and Mike have put into that report. It's good to know that we're kind of getting back together onto a direction, which seemed to we've fallen off the path a little bit. I'd be interested in the councillor's sort of view on. Mike said we're going to take away the stop the project end of that phrase. Is the general support for the project to continue? I guess that's something I'd be curious to know at this point.
I think you'll know soon. So I guess a question I've got from the group, I guess, is obviously it's a project that's kind of languished a little bit and time's dragged on. The confidence of the group and your understanding around the funding and things like, because I guess my concern is we keep hanging in there from the council point of view, but how realistic is the funding options? And this might be a question for the team, but you know, is there funding of this kind of magnitude externally that we're likely to be successful in?
We are led to believe that there is. I know that we had an application in for the lottery's what's it called, the Environment and Heritage Fund last year in July, and we got preliminary feedback that we needed a bit more work. We needed another 20 grand to actually meet the third kind of deal, third council, 2/3 our fundraising, and we also needed resource consent or to have some letter affirming that we needed or didn't need one and that kind of thing. So those were the only two things that were lacking at that point. Apparently the Lotteries Commission have far less funding available this year, but one of their criteria is to protect places or large built objects significant to our history. So, you know, this slots straight into that. And I don't know if you're all aware, but this Carnegie Library in Westport was the first one built in New Zealand. So, you know, it is quite significant regionally. Heritage New Zealand recognise that it's significant regionally and probably nationally for that reason. It is one of the few remaining buildings of any architectural merit in Westport as well. The one we're in being one of them, of course, but there are not many left. So, you know, the idea of knocking it down, I think, would be a backward step. But yes, no, I think I can speak for the group that we're still committed to pursuing funding and working more closely with the council. I think is the ideal path forward, because that's something that we had communication issues and it has affected progress.
Okay, cool. So we'll go to questions. Are there any? Councillor Weston.
The Carnegie building itself, is where it's built on, is that its actual footprint, or has it got a bit added on at the back or the side or whatever, as far as the land goes?
Through the chair and CEO, that is its actual footprint. It's actually on its own separate title, which is not too much wider than the actual footprint of the building.
Any other questions? Councillor Howard?
I'd put a few on to Mel, just to give him the heads up it's going to be asked in this meeting. A lot of mine are around the finances and future funding, and probably the accountability of where we are so far around the funding. So my understanding was originally actually it was 500,000, not 510. I think we did get from recollection there may have been 10,000 towards project costs or to get it started, but we'd only had 500 towards funding seeding, which was kept separate and just used as a funding leverage. We'd also allocated a sum of money towards getting the feasibility study and getting this going. So I didn't see in the report any summary of how we were going about expenses to date against that set of funds. I was just looking ahead, like there's a big program of work you've outlined there that needs to be done, and where does staff time, where does all this factor into the budget? So I just want to be really, really sure in continuing this project, just how much funding we are committing to, including staff time and expenses, consent processes. I also note like the 1.6 million, that's based on April 2023. We can't assume that's going to be the build cost at the time of funding. There was a little bit of comment that's assuming there may be more money putting in. Just bearing in mind, we did a survey last year that asked the public what their priorities were, and rightly or wrongly, heritage came back at actually the lowest priority from the public. So I'm just wondering, I don't want to see it, the project going, but I'm just wondering if timing's right. So my other question I put forward was, if we miss the December 26th deadline, what are our options? Can we maybe barricade the building off to make it safe so it's still parked there for future work? Do we have to demolish? What are our options there should we get to that date and nothing's happened? I'm sorry, it's such a broad range of questions.
So I won't try and summarise that, but finances first, I think. And I'll just note, Councillor Naylor, I've seen your hand, so you can relax. I'll come to you as soon as we've dealt with this one. Finances, please.
Through the chair and the CEO. I guess the definitive answer is the funding that was carried forward under the multi-projects approved back in November of last year, and that money carried forward was $514,000. So that's the money that's available for the project. Cost to date in this financial year is just around 51,000, and that excludes staff overheads. Those costs are they're around consultants for the design review and also the legal review, and that 50,000 includes 32,000 from the previous year that was brought into this year. So some of those costs for other things like the quantity surveyor have reviewed the cost back in April. So that covers the cost. And what was the last question?
Just around the timing, around the December 26th of having to do seismic strengthening. What's the consequences if we don't meet that deadline?
This probably would have to come back to you on that, but as well as applying for funding goes, there's slots every year to apply for the funding, but that deadline of 2026 is still looming. So I understand that there's some urgency to deal with it.
So council has that obligation. The 2026 deadline is council's because we own the building, whether or not we're seeking to do it up or we leave it how it's sitting now. So we've kind of got that liability regardless until the building's no longer there or the work's done. Haven't we?
Yeah, but it's just to add to that, it's category 2 heritage building as well. So the responsibility sits with the council, and two options really: to upgrade it or leave it as is, or remove it. And we will need to check, but
I guess I'm asking, as this December 26th comes around, is it an option just to leave it as is? Can we?
We'd have to make sure it stays safe, and it could require barriers around it, that sort of thing. I think even because it's listed in the council's district plan as a historic building, we'd have to check that it may also need a resource consent if there was a consideration of an option to remove it.
Councillor Naylor.
Oh, yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Is it Grant, is it, from the CCC group? Just a bit of clarification. He talked about a third, a third, a third. And then in the next sentence, he talked about 1/3 and 2/3. As I understand it, do you have to have a third in order to apply for lotteries grant, or is it a third, a third, a third?
Sorry, Graham. It's Pete here, Pete Graham. We have met. I don't know if you can see me on camera.
Can't see you yet, Pete.
Yeah, I think it's just a third and then 2/3. I think that's probably more accurate. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Grafton.
So if we're saying that 500 is all council's willing to put in, and you're talking a third, 2/3, and looking at that, if they're saying 1.6 now as of a year ago, then surely by the time the job's finished, that's going to have a 2 in front of it. So how's it then viable?
Yeah, well, I guess that's a $1.8 million question, isn't it? We understand that council's funding is capped. I guess we just have to find more elsewhere. That's probably our approach.
Sorry, Councillor Sampson, does the lotteries or the funding, could the project be chunked down, or does it have to be the full project? Does anybody know? Because it seems to be a big leap to. There is quite a gap if we're talking about finished lock, stock, here's the keys, but it might be that you achieve a.
Mel and I were talking about that earlier, and it seemed like to do the seismic work first might be an option, and then it just means the building is then not usable until it is finished in some way. And so it will still just be an empty building in a sense, even though it won't fall down. But that could be explored.
Councillor Sampson?
Well, I'm quite confident that, while lottery heritage is one avenue to get 2/3 funding, but there are a number of different avenues if you only get partial funding and add on, and it's without going to the community and other funds around. So I feel confident, but my big thing is it's been held up for a couple of reasons. Everything's set to go. We've had a lot of changes in staff that we know, and in the 12 months I've been here, there's probably been 6 different staff changes, and I'm sort of disappointed to sort of hear that 51,000 sitting there, because you keep going backwards, and now things have sorted within the group, and it's all steam ahead, but we've got to get resource consent from the council to be able to even apply for funding, and the backing of council to say yes with the MOU, because the MOU expired last July, as you read there, and it was about October when we endeavoured to get it redone, and here it is now because of just hold-ups. And until we can get that security, you can't go out looking for funding, whether it be local funding or just benefactors. And the longer we hold off, the less chance you've got of it ever going ahead. And I think it's just got to go ahead. And the sooner, and if we can get the okay, we're away, because an application to heritage and lottery, which you heard Pete say before, went in last July. Well, that's when the ideal time for this is to go in to make sure that we have the surety how much funding comes from that and how much you have to go further. And it's taking that first step, and that first step hasn't really been taken. And I'm just asking you all here today to just let's get going and make it happen. And until we make that decision, nothing's going to happen. And I really think, it's been joint reasons why it hasn't moved. And I can say the last 8 months I've been on that group, it has been extremely frustrating as to just changes and the hiccups that have been there.
So I've got one more question to come. I'll take one more question from Councillor Reedy. Well, before I go to him, you might want to consider whether or not you want to move the recommendations while we deal with this, because it sounded good. Councillor Reedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of questions. If being a Heritage 2 or Category 2 building, we've got an option there of number 6, item 6, regarding demolition. I'm not sure, can we just, I know with the demolition, we have to consult with the Minister for Works and Construction. I can't remember what the minister's name is. Plus, we've got to go through Heritage New Zealand. So I'm not sure why that's there as an option when we haven't explored those details yet. Secondly, we've got the legal advice from FBM, I should say, regarding, and they've identified some steps that have to be followed, or that should be recommended to be followed. We haven't discussed those. One of those recommendations is to employ a project manager. So therefore, I can see straight off costs again. For some reason, we're not able to do this in-house. And thirdly, in terms of funding, I can only keep coming back to the cultural hub, where we had 150,000 plus 50,000, and one has to ask the question, why have we not looked at the Carnegie library? Those are my 3 points, please, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Right, I should have been noting them.
I can read them out again. First of all, number 6.
Yeah, number 6. Oh, yeah. So demolition. Presumably,
demolition.
There's a way we could knock it over if we wanted to knock it over. But I'll just answer that question around heritage, Mr. Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through the chair. So as item or draft recommendation number 6, and to my earlier comment, any notion to stop the project for whatever purpose, either to leave as is or demolition, would be a matter to return back to council after having the appropriate discussions and options with certainly with the community group and other stakeholders. So I can assure council that any demolition of the building would have to go through several next steps and a separate resolution of council. To the point, is that?
Yep.
That's
that one.
Yep.
The second one around project management costs, if we were to follow the FBM advice.
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Mayor. With respect to the process that we would take forward if council, particularly resolution or draft recommendation number 3, what staff would do is take the advice of FBM, and I think there was something like 49 points, and transpose that into an action plan or what we would call a work program. And that would be the work that we would do in collaboration with the CCC group to basically turn it into a list of activities and tasks, and also the methodology about how that project would be delivered, which would include the detail about roles and responsibilities, the budget, the distribution of the budget to different elements of the project, and that would have to be part of the proposal brought back to council to actually confirm all of that detail, including project delivery costs, project management costs, where they would be funded from, and potentially which resource would be proposed. So that would be all part of the next step, is to take the fundamental guidance of the legal opinion and transfer it into what we would call a project execution plan. But fundamentally, it's the program of work that would need to happen. And the key thing is that would be developed in collaboration with the CCC community group.
And the last point around community hub locations. So we're a little bit limited what we can comment there, other than that site has been in the mix in terms of the sites considered. So that's still not off the table. That
well,
area.
the feasibility study, that wasn't one of the conclusions that came to.
but the preferred sites and the like are still public excluded as far as I recall. So, but it has been part of the mix and considered, Colin. So, Councillor Reddy, for that. Does that deal with your questions?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Perfect. Councillor Farlett.
Thank you. I support the project and I love the building. I think it's really cool. I think it's probably not a priority of, Buller ratepayers at the moment, but I wonder when would be the next opportunity to consult and how long would this hold it up if we decided to pause, I guess?
I'll have to go to our team. I would think, unless there was a special attempt, it would probably be the next long-term plan.
Yes.
So probably be April next year, unless we wanted to do a special consultative procedure or some other consultation. Councillor,
I'm sort of worried about the cost of delaying stuff. The cost of delaying already is cost of 600,000. Any cost is a real cost. And as you know, anyone that builds homes and stuff, the longer you leave it, the more the costs are. So procrastination just kind of means fundraising's harder, and then it gets harder every time.
Councillor Sampson.
Look, happy to move the first 3 resolutions, and doing that, the project costs are actually already built into those costings that we had earlier, and I agree, the longer we leave it, the money is already sort of in the budget already, so it would be taken out, and it would help with the budget, but on that note, it would have to be put in again, so the longer you leave it, the more costly it's likely to get, and so I'm happy to move those first 3 resolutions.
Would you like to remove the words "or stop the project"?
No, of course not. I agree for the project item 2 agrees to continue with the project planning.
So we're deleting "or stop the project"?
Yes, please.
Yep. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Weston. Okay, so it's 1 through 3. I'll open that for further discussion. Councillor Howard.
I'm just concerned that it doesn't come with a budget. The original decision around that 500,000 was that the 500,000 was only going to be used for the 1/3 towards funding. So therefore you've only got 14,000 for all the expenses to develop your application. I don't see the budget there for what it's going to take and council's contribution to bring this towards the funding application stage.
So
I couldn't approve it until I actually saw what it's committing ratepayers to, but I also that Councillor Farlett about whether for ratepayers this is the right timing.
So just point out 1 through 3 doesn't deal with budget. This is more around willingness. I would say that's how I would summarise 1 through 3 of council to keep the project live and continue to reinvigorate the relationship with the Carnegie Cultural Group. So just point that out because the argument and discussion around budget could come in the following recommendations, but I know you may have an appetite not to support it unless you knew the budget was secure, but that is a debate we can have on those following recommendations. Is there any other debate on 1 through 3? Councillor Naylor.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I guess I've been familiar with this project since 1992 when I first came on the council, and it's been a project that's been on again, off again, on again, off again. In fact, I think we actually either gave the building or sold the building to a group for $1, and then they got nowhere, and we've got it back again. I guess it's pleasing to see that we've now got a bit more of a drive to do something with it. But with all the, since 1992, all the heritage buildings that I've had anything to do with throughout the buller. The one main factor is that you've got to have an end use for it. And when you're spending $1.6 million, I think you need a paying tenant in there. And so, I'm happy for it to continue along. But what I'd like to see is that, there's a tenant signed up for part of the end use of it. Because without that, you've got depreciation costs every year, you've got running costs, etc. And you've got to go, if you haven't got a paying tenant for that, you've got to come back cap in hand to the council, I guess, every year. So happy to go through with 1, 2 and 3, but really want, in the next stage to actually have a paying tenant signed up and I'm pretty sure that would help any funding applications as well.
Thank you. Any other people want to speak on that before we put 1 through 3 to the vote?
I can just mention that right from the very beginning of this group's existence, the idea was to make use of the building as an art gallery and a performing arts space. So it's going to contribute something which this community doesn't currently have. It doesn't have a permanent art gallery space. Modelled a little bit on the gallery in Reefton, which is a building that artists rent. So there is income generated from that building. And a performance space for things like Arts on Tour, who at the moment are going to Granity, to the Lyric Theatre. So that sort of thing. So it would be income generated, and it would also provide, pardon me, a sort of public space which Westport currently doesn't have. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that further input. Okay, we will put 1 through 3 to the vote. It's been moved. Councillor Sampson, seconded. Councillor Weston. Will I read them out? I guess I can. We received the status report, agree to continue with the project planning. And 3, if the project is to continue, works collaboratively with the Carnegie Cultural Centre Incorporated Society and return to council for subsequent approval of the following. A, agree the draft terms of a draft memorandum of understanding based on attachment 1. B, identify and develop a roles and responsibilities matrix between the parties to be included in the memorandum of understanding. C, identify and develop a project plan based on the required steps for the project based on attachment 2. D, identify and develop external funding criteria, deliverable and final applications. E, identify and develop resource consent criteria, deliverables and a final application. Moved Sampson, seconded Weston. All those in favour? Any against?
Can I speak to my?
No. For or against or abstain?
Abstain.
Okay, so the motion is carried unanimously, noting the abstention of Councillor Howard. So that still leaves us 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8 to deal with. I think it's pretty safe to move 4. And we're just noting the project cost has increased from the original 1.02 to 1.6 million. I move that way. Seconded Councillor Sampson. Any discussion on that? All those in favour? Any against? That one's unanimous. Okay, now we're into the funding discussion. So we agree to retain, the recommendation is we agree to retain the provision to seed funding of 510,000 and carry forward funds into the 24-25 enhanced annual plan. Want to move that way? Moved Councillor Sampson, seconder. Councillor Weston. I'll open that one for discussion. Councillor Namon.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Normally when we're carrying over funds such as this, we have a report from our finance team, and so I'd like to see that deferred and brought up when we do the carryovers and include that in the carryover report.
That does raise a question for me.
Did do that in November. We did carry it over.
Into this financial year. So we would normally deal with carryovers as a group, wouldn't we? I'll go to our CFO. So you may not have been following the conversation. So there's a recommendation around carrying over now the 510,000 provision for Carnegie into the 24-25 enhanced annual plan. Why would we address that now and not as part of our normal carryovers process?
Thank you, Worship. So as part of the last risk and audit meeting, I said we would deal with carry forwards as part of the enhanced annual plan adoption. So we are dealing with carry forwards right now. So the timing of the resolution is fine. We'll pick it up because it's just cleaner and easier to do it as part of the annual plan every year as opposed to November. So we'll be doing that. So yep, that's all fine, the resolution.
Does that clarify that for you, Councillor Nara?
Well, I guess we're not having a debate on the enhanced annual plan tonight, and I would have thought that would have been something we may have debated, you know, when we do look at finalising the plan and after we've heard submissions, etc.
So the way I'm reading 5 is that we're basically approving the CFO to include this in the table of carryovers in the enhanced annual plan. So it is up for, will be redebated as part of the enhanced annual plan, but I get that that doesn't quite read like that. I just wonder if we need to tweak that wording. You have raised a good point, I think.
Do we need it right now?
We don't have to have it, do we?
Yeah,
We could actually take it out.
Just take it out and we'll bring it forward, Your Worship, as part of the annual plan process.
And it's one decision.
Yes.
So take that out.
Are you comfortable with that? Okay, so although moved and seconded, the mover and seconder, Councillor Sampson and Weston, are you happy, Councillor Weston, to have withdrawn the recommendation 5, and that will just remain on the table?
Just a note on that, the fact that it will be there in the enhanced annual plan, it hasn't been submitted on. Will the group be able to speak on behalf of it in the enhanced annual plan? So there'll be no submissions put at this stage put forward, because while it had already been sort of there, thinking that we didn't have to, no submissions have come forward or anybody to speak on it at the plan, so it's sort of a bit out of balance against other submitters.
My gut feeling is no.
Can I help you out a bit, Mr. Mayor? It could be part of the staff submission to the annual plan.
Okay, yes.
So you wish that's the answer, is that it will be dealt with by staff in their reports on the annual plan. And I hear what Councillor Sampson's saying, but if you take that view, every project carried forward then needs a late submission. That's not what we're doing, and let's be blunt here. We're having a specific discussion on one issue. We know what we're going to do with it in terms of giving it a bit more time in terms of that process. So yeah, I think we're fine.
So this effectively is almost a better opportunity than what you would get in a 5-minute slot. Given we've got the committee here that participated in the decision making, but I note that really they, to be honest, we can't hand on heart say you have guaranteed funding until the enhanced annual plan is approved. But that's just the reality. I think everything's on the table. Councillor Sampson. Sorry. Howard.
Just one thing I think is missing in the recommendations or processes outlined is that the business case or the feasibility study, that going through this whole expenditure, we need to know it stacks up at the end and what any ongoing council commitment be. And I think that's integral to the whole process. So I'd just like to see that actually included in one of the processes. We're talking about, developing the external funding and deliverables and everything like that and resource consents, but we also actually need to be assured of an estimate of the future cost to ratepayers. So we need to know the feasibility study or business plan as part of this process.
Can I add that that's an essential part of funding applications, is a feasibility study as to how it stacks up. So once you're putting a funding application in, like lottery and heritage, not necessarily lottery and heritage, but most funding applications, you need to put a feasibility study to make sure that it's going to stack up.
So my understanding from the memorandum understanding, when it gets to the stage of applying for a funding application, it would require or one possibly council's approval, so we'd be assured in that we're putting up that funding, co-funding, that these matters are addressed.
That'll be my expectation, yep. Councillor Reedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With respect, all we're doing is this amount was originally agreed in the 21 to 31 long-term plan. It was then agreed in the EAP draft that we adopted the draft EAP that the 510, although not specifically identified, would be included in the plan in the EAP. Now, all we're saying is that at the moment we're agreeing to retain that amount in the annual plan and carry forward the funds into the enhanced annual plan. Now, we haven't drawn down any money yet, and before anything happens, all we're saying, as I say before, we have it in the annual plan. Before anything happens, it's going to have to come to the council as an agenda item anyway, I would have thought.
Yeah. Yes.
So all we're saying is that we agree to carry it forward into the annual plan. So I don't see what the issue is at the moment, please, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. So we've agreed to leave number 5 at all at the moment because it will be addressed by adoption of the enhanced annual plan. It's a given, as you say, it's in the draft.
Correct.
So unless there's some move at adoption of the enhanced annual plan to remove it, it's in. Is that your
correct?
Yes.
I agree.
So 5 is redundant and has been removed from debate. So I just want to get moving on this because it feels like we're bogging down here.
Yeah.
6, 7, and 8. Is there anything particular that concerns anyone with those? Councillor Reedy.
My only concern, Mr. Mayor, is number 6. I don't believe it's an option like number 5. The option to save the demolition costs. Well, there's a lot of other saying notes that if the project's not to proceed, there's a lot of other activity as well that's required, not just demolition costs of 150. We've got to go through, as I said before, the minister. We've got to go through heritage. There's a lot of activity to go through. So I mean, I'm not even sure why we're even discussing this. Item 6.
I agree. I'll leave it on the table unless anyone has an appetite. I don't think it helps.
Correct.
Councillor Weston.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I totally agree. I don't see why it's in there.
Cool.
So it's not an option.
So 6 stays on the table.
Similarly for number 7, that's just a note, it's not really, I don't think it needs to be a recommendation again. Because it's a council date.
Beg your pardon, Mr. Allen, you just broke up.
8.
Councillor Nolan moves 8. Seconded by Councillor Sampson. It's pretty straightforward, that one. All those in favour? Any against? So that was, sorry, I should have read it out. Engage with the Carnegie Cultural Centre Incorporated Society regarding item 3B to council resolution. So that's moved and seconded. All that was carried, wasn't it? Did we vote? Yep. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. And 7 stays on the table as well. Okay, that's dealt with that. Thank you, Cultural Centre Group, for your input and sticking with us.
Well, thank you very much for all this will be good. We'll go ahead now and get
we've just been waiting.
Excellent. Okay, great. Thank you. Right, we'll keep cracking because we have got a mother ahead of us. Right, let's go back to agenda item 5. Is the property rationalisation. We've dealt with those. Yep. So we're here. Okay. Yep. That's right. Property rationalisation, agenda item 5. I will just go to Ms. Trigg to talk to anything through the report, and then I think we will go through them property by property as they're listed. So is there any general questions on the report? We'll take it as read here. or do you want to speak to it?
If we go property by property, I can speak to them, that's fine.
Okay.
Any questions?
Councillors, is there any sort of overarching questions for this report? Councillor Naylor.
Can I make an overarching statement, Mr. Mayor? And this was the type of report that the Anangahua Community Board was delaying any recommendation until this report surfaced. And if I can just refer everybody to the Anangahua Community Board delegations. So in addition to the Community Board's legislative role, the Community Board is responsible for and accountable to Council for, and it's got 1, 2, and 3, and the pertinent ones are 3 and 4, making recommendations to Council on leases, licensing or concessions associated with all Council-owned property included within the locally funded activities of the Community Board area, excluding Council administration land and buildings. So I presume that this is no longer a Council administration land and building. And 4 is making recommendations to Council on property, including land and buildings, acquisitions and disposals in the local area. So to me, that reads like all those ones on that in this report that refer to Anangahua properties really need to go back to the Community Board for recommendations. But I'll just leave that with you.
Is that what you really want, Councillor Naylor?
It's not what I really want, but I'm just saying that that's how it's written.
Okay. Thank you for that. I'm of a mind to make a slightly more definitive decision than that tonight, but still refer some aspects back to the Community Board. But I'm just flagging that now. That would be where my head is at in this report. Any other questions on this report? Okay, let's just go through them then, if there's no questions. The recommendations there, let's just deal with the first one. We note the progress made in the property rationalisation project, so I'll move that way. Seconded Deputy Mayor Basher. All those in favour? Any against? So that's carried unanimous. That's just noting the report really. Okay, with regard to the former Reefton depot, Council A consents to the stopping of legal road adjoining sections 845 to 854, Town of Reefton Depot as both owner of the adjoining land and the Territorial Authority in accordance with section 116 of the Public Works Act 1981, and instructs the Chief Executive Officer to proceed with the requirements of section 116 of the Public Works Act 1981 to request the Minister of Land Information to stop the legal road adjoining sections 845 to 854, Town of Reefton. I will move that way. Is there a seconder? Seconded Councillor Howard. I'll open that for discussion. I don't have any particular opening address for that. Councillor Reedy.
I agree with Graham Nowlan in respect of the Reefton properties. So when I read this here, I had no map in terms of the stopping of the legal road. So I ended up going into Street View and looking to see. Of course, I couldn't understand sections 845 and 854, what they related to. But what I could see on the satellite was if you like, a paper road or unformed road. Now, none of this is in here for me to understand as a reader. And I just want to know from anybody with knowledge, are we talking about a paper road, an unformed road, which we want to stop?
So the recommendation talks about stopping of a legal road.
Yeah, stopping of a legal road. But where is this? I don't have a map to refer to. I don't know Reefton. So as I say before, I ended up going through Street View to find out what this legal road was.
Okay,
so here I'm being asked to consent to the stopping of the legal road. What is the legal road that I'm being asked to stop? And this is where I want advice from the Reefton community.
Yeah.
Can we answer that tonight or not?
Thank you, Councillor Reedy. I don't have a map at the tip of my fingertips to send to you, unfortunately, but I will note that for any future reports to include a map. And I'll just request that one of the councillors from the Inangahua region, I believe, if I'm not incorrect, that it's although it's a legal road, it's not used, but the locals will certainly be able to put me right there.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, absolutely. It refers to the old, former Reefton depot. So that's the former county council depot, and for a while it was the West Reach depot as well. So you would have noticed on the view that there was a building on one corner, and then there's a big area of land which has a lot of sections in it, and a paper road through that area of land, and it's by the Don Street pensioners flats, or holding for the elderly flats. And so the idea is that the previous council was looking at selling it off, and it would just make it a lot easier if that paper road was stopped. So I don't expect that anybody, it's not like the other one that we dealt with the other week with the potential for a walking track or anything like that. It's a pretty innocuous piece of paper road, and it would certainly help the sale process for all of those sections if it was stopped.
And noting this recommendation is just about stopping the road. It's not about, it's about packaging it up into something that is marketable or developable. It's not actually disposing of it with this recommendation.
Not at this stage, but I think that was the intention of the previous council in the property rationalisation. So yeah, this is the first step, and I don't think. Well, you never know whether there'll be any objections during the process, but I think everybody would be in favour of it.
Thank you. So it's been moved and seconded. Any other questions on this one? Okay, all those in favour? Any against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Right. Number 3 is with regard to 13 Plaskett Street, Reefton. Now, I just need to quickly read this. So the options here, instructing the Chief Executive Officer to bring a report to Council outlining Section 82 Local Government Act requirements for consultation for consideration and resolution, or remove the property from the list of council-owned properties to be disposed of under the Property Rationalisation Project, and rescinds the resolution of 27th of April 2022 in Agenda Item 7 Property Rationalisation Project, which instructed the Chief Executive Officer to proceed with the process of disposal of the Plaskett Street lot mentioned there. Ms. Trigg, do you want to talk us through this one at all?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. This one was formally approved from Council for divestment subject to legal advice. The legal advice since come back to advise that it fell within the definition of a park and reserve. So therefore it is recommended that we don't further any process with the divestment of this, and it will remain as is.
Thank you. Councillor Howard?
Can I just the reasons for that advice? Is that complexity of going through that process, or the expense, or?
Great question, Councillor. Both. It would involve community consultation for that small piece of land, and the legal advice was not to proceed with it. It's quite difficult to get that sort of reserve status removed.
Thank you. Okay, I'm not seeing a lot of hands up, so I will move that with regard to 13 Plaskett Street, Reefton, Block 3, DP 16814, that Council B removes the property from the list of council-owned properties to be disposed of under the, as read out before. So we're removing it from sale or from going through that process. Seconder? Councillor O'Keefe. Any other discussion on that one? All those in favour? Any against? That one's carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, with regard to the Reefton Service Centre building and associated land, sections 178, 179, Town of Reefton, and the options there are instructing the Chief Executive Officer to either proceed with the disposal of the property subject to legal advice, or to lease the building at a commercial rate, or to lease the building for a community use at a commercial rental amount. or D, to lease the building for a community use at a peppercorn rental amount. I'll go to Ms. Trigg in a second, just pointing out this is the one which you've had some information shared a couple of times now from Rachel Fifield and a group in Reefton with a proposal for potentially using that building. Just pointing that out to you to jog your memory. Ms. Trigg, do you want to just talk us through where this is at?
Thank you very much, Your Worship. To Councillor Nailon's point earlier, the Inangahua Community Board have discussed this in the last 2 meetings. We've recently had the valuation come through, which was quite a pivotal piece of information we needed for this report. The community group has advised up to date that there's 298 residents in support of the proposal, and we do wish to thank those people involved. The staff recommendation on this is based on the social aspect of the community wellbeings. So while we can look at offering a place for people to meet, especially with the elder community that we know that we have in Inangahua, when we're looking at the commercial aspect of the proposal that's been put forward regarding the banking hub and also the retail space, that does fall outside of council's scope. In the current economical climate, a return to council in form of any sale proceeds and no ongoing costs would better serve the community of Reefton and beyond, which is where the staff recommendation has been born from. Council potentially could go to ICB to ask for a list of recommendations on priority projects on what ICB would recommend for potential proceeds to be used for in the area. That might be upgrading the Women's Institute rooms, which they meet in and need some work done. It could be further work to our senior housing portfolio. The other options on the resolution bring up council's view on when to apply the peppercorn rental agreements, which will be a further discussion that we can bring back to council, but that's just the different options on leases, commercial rates, peppercorn rates, and it is quite a meaty subject, so I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Right, so I'm going to foreshadow an additional recommendation. I will be leaning towards A, and I would like to add to A, so this is disposal of the property subject to legal advice, that the proceeds of that sale be tagged, and maybe someone could help me with some proper wording, but tagged for Reefton, and the use of those funds be subject to a recommendation referred to the ICB, thinking banking here, ICB for their recommendation in terms of use of the proceeds of that sale. I'm just flagging that as a recommendation, thing I'll be seeking to move. Councillor Howard.
Can I make an amendment to that? When we made the original decision to invest in the new service centre, we recognised it was going to cost a considerable amount of money, and the decision at the time was the eventual sale of that building would cover those costs. So I'm saying that we can give this, and also we were going through the property rationalisation, so that the sale was expected to go into just rates offset. Should you go ahead with that motion, I'd like to suggest that the actual cost of the upgrade of the new service centre, and also bearing in mind that's meant the retaining of the information centre, which was at doubts at that time was at risk because of funding, that be deducted, because basically we've spent the money already, so we're not going to really be giving it out twice.
I think I understand your question, but I think, okay. Can you answer that?
There was money tagged to be spent on the upgrade of the previous service centre, and it was those funds that were used for the upgrade of the other building. So I understand what you're saying there, but I'm not sure if accountancy-wise that will make a difference.
Okay, because so my view on that would be that council had an obligation to continue providing a service in Reefton, a service centre in Reefton anyway. So I'm not sure that it's, I'm struggling to understand why we would pull that out now as something that should be identified separately.
I guess.
You understand what I'm saying?
But just to clarify, I guess I just gave a bit of the history about the discussion at council at the time, and it was based around improving the service, but it was about property rationalisation, and the property rationalisation program was about offsetting rates. So that's sort of district wide.
Okay, Councillor Reedy.
Just a few questions if I may, please, Mr. Mayor. One of them in relation to what Joe's talking about. I would have thought with the, I hear what Chrissy's saying regarding the costs for the transfer to the new service centre, information centre. It was originally 75,000, then became 100,000, and I've recently seen something around the line of 269,000. Now, this money for the cost of moving to the new centre. Now, this money didn't grow on trees, so I'm gathering we borrowed the funds for this, and I would have thought any proceeds from a potential sale, on which I've got some questions, would go against settling that any loan that has been taken out to fund the merged centres. So why would we want to use it for anything else? I don't know. Just to carry on page 34, it looks to me that we're the land was purchased from the Crown in 1989, and yet further on when we read the paragraph, and Ngātamarua County Council appears to have purchased the building and land to continue operating. Well, if Ngātamarua County Council owned the land prior to 1989, that means that it automatically switched when with the amalgamations of 1989. I don't know how council would have needed to purchase that land when in actual fact it was already owned by the county council. Now we're also looking at legal advice is being sought. There is a number of questions here. Minister of Land, the offer back of property. It's noted that it's gazetted as a post office gazette notice. Here we are putting forward a motion to sell the property, but there are so many items, legal items against the sale. I would have thought we'd have something on the table to say yes or no, we can sell this property. So there's so many question marks on this at the moment. I don't really see how we can put forward a motion to say we're going to sell it, or we should sell it.
So the recommendation says subject to legal advice. So it's kind of like kicking in train. My view is that it'd be kicking in train the work to answer all of those questions, which is no point doing if there's no appetite for council to sell it. If there is an appetite to sell it, we need to start somewhere, and then the ultimate decision to actually finally sell it would be subject to a future paper to council once that work has been done.
That's not how we've done previously.
So who owns the building?
So, it's a great question, Councillor Reedy. How we've done it previously is once council resolves to sell it, the legal advice is brought back much as it was with Plaskett Street if it flags any issues, and then that's raised at this table. Otherwise, it's a continue on to sale, and then that's where it says authorise the Chief Executive Officer to proceed.
Yeah, so the legal advice, I'll just finish it there. The legal advice will be another $10,000+ to come off the sales value. So I hope we're keeping a mental note on a piece of paper as to how much the costs are, the variable costs are associated with the sale.
Yeah. So I'm happy to, I've flagged the kind of resolution I'm talking. The exact wording is yet to be determined. It might be just the profit on any sale that's referred back to the ICB. I don't know. I'm open to that. I'm hearing the arguments here. Councillor Fowler.
Thank you. Given the presentation we had at the last council meeting and the amount of support there sounded like it was in Reefton, I'd feel more comfortable asking for ICB for a direct recommendation. I think most of us are from Westport. We don't live in Reefton. Can't speak for what people in Reefton want. So if this is really the path they would like to go down, I would think ICB would be in support of that. So I would prefer to refer this on to ICB.
Okay. Councillor Howard?
I believe that this debate was taken to the council at the time it was started, agreed to amalgamate the two services into one. It was in the community then that was always going to be disposal of the building when the new centre opened. So
Ms. Trigg?
Never any formal resolutions to be able to uphold that.
So it may have been councillor understanding. I suspect you're right, but it wasn't resolved as such. Okay, I'm hearing lots here. I haven't heard anything from Reefton. So you've got a fairly good steer for where I was going. And partly because I know it is difficult in a small community to make some of these really unpopular or potentially unpopular decisions. I guess I was offering a way of perhaps leaving a degree of ICB recommendation on the table, but perhaps not all of the recommendation. But I'm open to feedback from Reefton before we perhaps look to move something here.
Just in terms of the proposal that we've heard from the group, and that they have got some community support, that's a given. I guess it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation, because what they require in order to go ahead and do a feasibility study is a agreement in principle that they could lease the building either for a commercial rent or a peppercorn rent. And I guess when we do that, we've indicated that we're no longer selling the building at this stage. But I guess the chicken and egg is that we indicate that yes, you can go ahead and do your feasibility study, and the feasibility study comes back. When we questioned them at the community board, was that they actually need either a head tenant or an anchor tenant. So their whole proposal revolves around getting a head tenant and then another tenant. And what they were looking at was a commercial tenant for income of about $18,000 a year, and then another tenant which could be a banking hub for $12,000 a year. So they really need $30,000 worth of commercial tenants, if you like. And I guess without that, the feasibility study falls down because there's no way they can meet the annual costs of leasing the building or running the building. So we're in a bit of a sort of a difficult situation where we could give them agreement in principle on the understanding that the feasibility study confirms that go ahead, but I guess the danger in giving the agreement in principle, and this is what we've run into in other issues by doing that, is that you're actually, you're giving them permanent leasing of the building, if you like, because you've done it in principle, and that sort of tends to get thrown back at you. So, I understand where they're coming from. I understand they've got some community support, but if they were able to come to us with a signed tenancy agreement or a very, very good, solid agreement from those two tenants, then that would probably change the view on the whole thing. But at the moment, when we questioned them on at the last community board meeting, they had no tenants, and that's part of the 25,000 or up to 25,000 that they need in terms of feasibility study. So if we were to leave it on the table at the moment and they were to come back with a business case, with signed tenants, then we could relook at it. I don't think there is any real need that I can see that we unload the building right at this moment, but we could give them a set time to say, come back with a business case, come back with your tenancy agreements, and then we'll look at it, rather than making a decision today to sell it. So that's one option, or the other option is we simply dispose of it, vote to dispose of it, because the last question I think we were asked at the community board meeting, and I think you answered it, Mr. Mayor, was could they buy the building? And obviously, if the sale process goes ahead, then they are eligible to put in it. If it's a tender process, which I expect that it will be, then they are eligible to put in a tender price for it, and and the market determines what happens, I guess, in terms of what their offer compared to other offers are. So that we could go, they could get $1 each way, if you like, if we vote tonight to dispose of it, or we could say, let's give them 2 months to come back with a business case with some concrete tenants, and if they can't do that, we revisit it. In terms of what Councillor Howard and Councillor Reedy's been saying about the funds, if it is to be sold, I guess if you take the expenditure off the sale price, well, then the money that's already been spent, I guess, comes back into the council coffers. So, it looks as though you've paid for the shift by the sale of the building. Those funds have already been spent. They've already been rated for, and as Ms. Trigg said, they were part of the maintenance for the old building anyway. So it was just simply transferred, rather than maintenance of the old building, it was transferred to a fit out of the new building. And so I don't think we're going to give back the rate money that we rated in the last financial year, and then spent on the fit out. But it's a moot point. But so I'm not going to comment on whether it should be ring fence for an Angahua ward. I'll leave that up to the rest of the councillors.
Thank you. Councillor Howard.
I was going to bring up just what Graham Nayland's mentioned. If we do vote for putting up the sale, it is quite a process, so the community would have plenty of time to go out for funding, or is an option. It's not going to be having to raise the money overnight should they wish to be in the process of tendering for the building. So I think there's ample opportunity with that choice.
Okay, so Chair of ICB, how do you want? What would your preferred way to proceed here be?
It is a tricky one here, because Councillor Nayland said that we've had 2 meetings, but we haven't had the information to proceed with any recommendation. I guess for me, if council decides to recommend it to go back to the ICB, our next meeting is not till July. So then, therefore, it would then sit on the July, if it gets, the July council meeting. So there is a delay in that. I guess it's come to the council. It's up to the council to decide, what they want to do.
Okay, anything else? Anyone going to help me out here?
Is there any reason that we can't do what Councillor Nayland said and put a 2 months of deadline, or something deadline to come back with a business case or not, and then?
So I think the issue was the group needed to apply for funding to fund their feasibility study. They needed some commitment that they had access to the building on which they were doing the feasibility on. And so until they get some kind of indication from council that says, yep, you can have our building if the feasibility stacks up, they kind of can't go and get that money. That's my understanding of the kind of bind that we're in. That's for their business case, if you like.
But I mean, if the business case came back and it did stack up, then obviously the feasibility study's been successful. And could we say that if the feasibility study shows that they are financially viable, then we can lease the building, otherwise it will go for disposal. Sort of put a deadline, say either bring back a feasibility study which shows you're financially viable, or it will go for disposal, it will be put up for disposal. That's it.
Councillor Webb.
Just a question about just from their presentation where they gave some figures about community support. I just wonder whether when they gathered those numbers at their initial meetings, whether the question was posed that the community and support, if it was at a cost to ratepayers. So that, there's two types of questions. Are the community in a support of a community hub? Yes or no? Yeah. And would you be still in support of a community hub if it came at a cost to ratepayers? You as a ratepayer, So I guess that wasn't quite clear what question when you say community support. I was unclear on how the question was posed and what information the community members who responded it had at the time.
Right. Okay, Councillor Reedy. You're on.
Thank you, Mayor. Just looking at page 36, I hear what Linda's saying before, but the 7th of May meeting of the ICB resolved the ICB wait to make any recommendation, blah, blah, until they receive via a staff report at the May Council meeting. So it's up to Linda to decide whether or not they're going to go against that resolution because, as she said, the next meeting's in July, and I'm going to recommend that we park this leave it on the table for this particular recommendation and bring it up another time until we get more support or direction from the ICB.
Yeah. Sorry.
It's getting very hot this fall.
Yeah. Well, okay. All right. Well, okay then. I'm of two minds whether what way we test this. Let's just test the appetite. I'll move it that we move to dispose of the property subject to legal advice, and something along the lines of
Just leave it there.
any resulting profit from the sale be allocated to the Anangahua Community Board area for projects prioritised by the Anangahua Community Board. I'll move that way. If there's a seconder, we can just test the vote. If people want to sell the building or not, we'll get that one on or off the table.
Can we break that into two? Because, I'm certainly in favour of that disposal, but not the second part. So really, it's two different things. Where the proceeds go is different from the actual sale.
So we're talking now about the profit, though. So that's assuming that we're addressing some of those other matters.
I think it goes against one of our long-term plan, which is opportunities to rationalise building property and some of those long-term plan goals. So I prefer it to be separate.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded as I read it out. Noting you're against it, Councillor Sampson. Sorry, Councillor Howard. Why am I getting you too much Apologies from me. I am getting to the end of my day. It's been moved and seconded. No, Councillor Howard is against the motion by the sound of it. Anyone else want to speak? Discuss that further. So we put on the table the property be put up for sale subject to legal advice, and then any resulting profit from the sale be allocated to the Anangahua Community Board area for projects to be prioritised by the ICB. Moved and seconded. All those in favour of that? 1, 2, 3. All those against?
Name recorded, please.
Okay, so the motion is lost. Okay, would somebody like to, so that's good, we're not selling the building. Does Councillor Reedy, you have anything to put forward?
I would like to, as I mentioned before, put it on the table, leave this particular recommendation on the table until July, August meeting.
Yep, so I think I've teased that out a bit. I think maybe we could resolve that the staff report be referred to the Nangua Community Board, which is effectively what they were seeking. Or along those lines, just you might want to help me out here, somebody, but just refer it to ICB for further recommendation as to what happens from here.
Yes.
Happy to endorse that, Mr. Mayor.
I was just going to make a motion to do 4A as written.
4A.
Subject to legal advice.
Yeah, well, we can't because it's we've just tested that and there's no appetite.
Yeah, but there wasn't tested.
Yeah, but we can't re-put that's effectively the same thing. Standing order, whatever. You should know. Just correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we can retest another recommendation that is substantially the same as one that's just been voted on. Councillor Naylor?
Yes, well, I guess we've got a hospital pass from Councillor Reedy with this motion. What I would really like to see is that we consult with the group that were proposing the cultural hub there, if you like, or community hub, and we look at some way of them getting their feasibility or a business case done before this comes back to the next council meeting or even the community board meeting. Because we were told that there was they were seeking up to $25,000 for their business case, but we were also told that it might not necessarily cost that amount. So I think if we can tease that out, and so we're not meeting till July if this resolution goes through. So they've got a month or so, to. And we talk to them and our staff talk to them about how we can get a feasibility done, because as I said before, the real crux of their whole project relies around getting commercial tenants in there. And in the commercial world, if you like, and you're looking at a commercial building for purchase or use, you need to go to the bank, and the first thing the bank says is, we want 80% of the area tenanted before we'll even look at you. And so if they've got tenants in mind, then the major part of their feasibility or business case would be to have those tenants sign on the dotted line, and they've got a bit of time to do that now. And then if this goes through, we're happy to make a recommendation at the July community board meeting, but we would want to see that business case, i.e. those tenants signed on the dotted line for that prior to that meeting, ready to go on the agenda for that meeting.
Yep. Councillor Grafton.
So I suppose that was just my question, Graham. They need to be given a timeline.
Yep.
Otherwise, this will go round and round in circles.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try and wordsmith a recommendation on what I've heard and what I think Councillor Reedy's trying to achieve. So with regard to Reefton Service Centre, that council refers the matter to the Anangahua Community Board for recommendation at their July meeting, and that council supports the I've got a name, Rachel Fifield's group, to develop a feasibility study for presentation alongside the staff report to the ICB for consideration at its next meeting.
That will be June, if it's the ICB in July, by the end of June. There will be very limited staff capacity to support.
So I'm not saying staff support, I'm saying council support. So they may need some sort of letter or something to support their application for funding of that. So they would need to have that by the end of June to catch the July ICB meeting. Am I heading in the right direction here? Because I think we've got to get moving tonight or we'll be at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, you are, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
So to do that, we'd need to be asking them on, but it's not making a decision here and now, but we'd be asking to base that feasibility study on a commercial lease. In that case, we'd probably have to give an indication what a commercial lease would be and amount.
Yes, Councillor Eadie.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, can we just move on? We're talking about what could happen and what could not happen. All we're suggesting at the moment is that we defer this matter to the ICB and let's wait and see what happens after that. We're not talking about at the moment what this group should or should not be doing. It's not our responsibility. We're giving them the opportunity to do what they want to do, and if they want to play tiddlywinks, that's over to them. But can we just please put a motion on the table, yes or no, defer to ICB?
What if you stop talking?
So I'm proposing that we move. I don't know if anyone else moved. I'll move it. That council refer to the ICB for recommendation at the July meeting, and that council supports the community group to develop a feasibility study to be I don't know, for the consideration of to aid decision making or recommendations of the ICB. Move that way. Seconded, Councillor Reedy. Everyone understand what we're doing? All those in favour? Any against? Carried unanimously. Well done. Thank you, team. Let's keep moving. Can't wait for the next ICP meeting. Right, so we jumped through. We've done Carnegie, so we're through to the.
You haven't done number 5 yet.
Oh, beg your pardon?
Done number 5.
Oh my gosh. Hang on. Back up the truck. Agenda item, back to agenda item 5 and number 5, beg your pardon, which is what? Oh, this is the senior housing. Oh my goodness, this isn't quick either, I suspect. Okay, so options here. I won't read them out now. Ms. Trent, do you want to talk us through anything here?
I will very briefly. So these are 2 senior housing units that have been in care and maintenance since the last long-term plan. The staff recommendation is that we divest and we sell as is. We just need to subdivide that piece of land and sell it on. Council could again consider that funds could be used to benefit other senior housing portfolio, but freeing up the land for development would aid with Reefton's need of more housing. Staff recommendation is the whichever one it is. Sorry. Thank you. Happy to take questions.
Okay, questions. Councillor Howard.
I was going to make a move 5B.
I'm happy to second that.
Okay. So moved Howard, seconded Deputy Mayor, that in regard to 119 and 212 Broadway Reefton, which are the 2 under care and maintenance housing units, senior housing units in Reefton, that council proceed with the process of disposal of the portion of land containing the 2 units subject to legal advice and subdivision of the site, with proceeds of the sale from the property to be allocated to the senior housing upgrade and maintenance program. Moved Howard, seconded Basher. Any discussion on that? Councillor Eadie.
Where, Mr. Mayor, I'm aware of the fact that in the long-term plan we had a 2-year period where the council was going to divest senior housing. I don't recall any mention about not building senior housing. Happy to be corrected on that. But there seems to be a little bit of cost, quite a bit of cost in terms of demolition and the like of the existing 2 buildings. Yes, I have gone into satellite view on those 2 properties. It seems to me that if the land for the what we had in the Reefton, the old service centre. It's about 100,000, I think, or 180,000. That's on Broadway itself. At best, I'm assuming we would get maybe 100,000 for sale of this land. We've got to do demolition, we've got to do subdivision, and so on and so forth. Are we actually going to make any money out of this?
So just quickly, B is not about demolition, it's disposal as is. So presumably they'll be put up for tender with the mole buildings on them. Is that my understanding? Yeah. So that's what B is achieving. It's not us buying into the demolition and what have you. It's making it so that it's saleable by subdividing it from, it must be attached to some other ones at the moment.
No, they're not. May I please, Mr. Mayor? They're by themselves, they're seated by themselves. Once again, we don't have a site plan, but when I read B, it says proceed with the process of disposal of the portion of land containing the subject to legal advice and subdivision of the site. So yes, although we may not be demolishing the site, we're still going to subdivide. And what comes back to what I'm saying, the land value will probably be about 100 grand. We don't know yet. Less the subdivision, costs, legal advice. I want to know what is going to be the net benefit in terms of bottom line. We don't see anything here.
So the reason it has to be subdivided is because there's some units we don't want to sell that are attached to the same title.
Mr. Mayor, I'm aware of that. What I'm asking is what...
I don't seem to understand it, Councillor Reedy. It's getting very frustrating.
What is that, sorry?
I'm struggling to understand what your question is.
The question is, what is the bottom line in terms of, is the council going to make any money out of this by the time we sell the land, regardless what we've got subdivision costs, we've got legal costs, and I'm asking the question, what is going to be the benefit? What is the bottom line in terms of, Mr. Mayor, the bottom line in terms of bankable money? And I'm going to suggest to you, nothing.
So how will you know, how would we know that until you determine the market value, which could only be done by presumably a tender process?
By that time, by the time you've gone out to tender, Mr. Mayor, the decision's been made to sell.
That's what B is suggesting. It's been moved and seconded, but I understand what you're saying, but I think we have to
move on. I'm against it. Name recorded, please.
Councillor, we haven't voted yet. Councillor Naylor.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. These two units, they were two single units that have been adjoined and are being called, by other previous councillors, bomb shelters, etc. But I do note that in the report, they were built in the 1950s and, they're quite a substantial cost to remodel them, etc. But just remind everybody that there's a lot of houses around Reefton that were built in the 1930s that people have come and bought, and they've done a fantastic job of remodelling them, at substantially less than the 300,000 that's been put on the table here. So I'm going to vote against it. I'm all for further investigating a report about refurbishing them. That from what I understand, the bones of the buildings are good. And, if they need a bit of repiling, well, that's happening all the time around the town. And certainly the renovations inside the building, could be at any standard that you want. And so I'll be voting against B, but if that's lost, I'll be moving C.
Okay. So we're going to move and second for B. I'm hearing fours and against that. So Councillor, write a reply and then we'll vote on B. You were the mover.
If it's in private hands, somebody can do it as a hobbyist or anything like that. So I'm sure the buildings will probably end up being used for some sort of accommodation. Another point is on sale, we do keep rates. So it's certainly not going to be a loss. And I think we have got that advantage of putting it back into the housing, something more fit for purpose. maybe if this other sale of property goes ahead and there's extra funds, maybe the Nangawa Community Board might like to combine funds, and then maybe there will be extra units. I just think there's lots of possibilities that will benefit the area.
Okay, with that, that was the right of reply. So the recommendation is proceed with the process of disposal for the portion of land containing the 2 units, subject to legal advice and subdivision of the site, with proceeds from the sale of property be allocated to the senior housing upgrade and maintenance program. All those in favour? 2, 4, 6. All those against?
Name recorded, please.
4, 5. So the motion is carried. 6-5. Thank you. Okay, that deals with all the property stuff, doesn't it? Thank you, everyone. Right. And we've done 6, so we now are on to 7. Which is speed management. And Mel will take us through this. So we had some feedback from the public consultation, which I understand has been captured in the table summarised here, and some explanations around the changes that the staff recommend. Mel, do you want to add anything to your report?
No, through the chair. Yeah, you take it as read, and available for questions. The key document, unless there's anything else, other questions on other aspects, is, as mentioned by the mayor, the table A, which recommends proposed changes to what's in the do minimum as it currently stands.
So, councillors, you've all had access to all of the submissions, and as I said, they are reflected where possible as recommendations in table A in response to those. I have a question around, and correct me if I've missed this somewhere, but whether or not we should be adding the piece of road outside Westport Kindergarten. It seems a no-brainer and a glaring omission on quite a busy arterial. And the only other thing is a comment we make around the section of Palmerston Street that is state highway, that we would advise the agency that we believed it should be 30 kilometres an hour, and we will recommend a change on the piece we control. I'm wondering why we're not doing that for Broadway and Reefton as well. Again, we can't set it as part of this because it is state highway, and that's not what's captured by this this recommendation, but we could advise the agency that was the view of council if that was what council felt for Broadway. Those are my 2 questions.
Yeah.
Mel?
Kindergartens first. The focus has been on the primary and secondary schools that weren't considered in the first time round. We would need to investigate further whether they should be included. I have indicated that they could be considered if appropriate for the next. There'll be further reviews of the speed management plan in the future, and we could consider them at that stage. The other 2 around Palmerston Street and Broadway, if you so choose, that could be part of your recommendation that NZTA recommended those 2 streets are considered for the speeds that you choose. But obviously Palmerston Street is similar to the northern end of Palmerston Street, which is 30k, and I'm not 100% sure what NZTA are proposing for Broadway, but it seems that 30k would be appropriate there too. That's for them to determine.
So would adding Westport Kindergarten, would that be something that would trigger more consultation or something, or
through
we couldn't add it?
There was submissions from other early childhood centres asking for the same thing. So my suggestion is they be considered as a group, so they're all either in or out for the next session.
Okay, Councillor Reedy, then I'll come to you, Howard.
Just a question, if I may, please, Mr. Mayor, through the Mayor. As we know, the new government in December cancelled. They I can't remember what the word was now, but they essentially cancelled the previous government's proposal in terms of speed management plans. And as a result, they said that they'll come out with a new plan in the new year. Now, I'm not aware of a new plan having come out yet in terms of the proposed speed management. But the minister in charge, Simeon Brown, did indicate that yes, you can go ahead and do what you want to do. But I can't remember what the words were now, but do what you want to do. But they still need to be certified. These plans need to be certified. So it's highly unlikely that NZTA will certify any plans that I know it's going through regional. Will certify any plans if NZTA do not have the current government's speed management plans. So the question at the moment is, are we aware of any revised speed management plan having been put into out of the public? Yes or no? Or are we working under the Labor government's speed management plan?
Oh, okay. Can you answer that?
Through the chair, there have been some that have gone through from other councils prior to the change in government. The setting a speed limits rule is still in existence. It is under review, and the key change is the timeframes are now voluntary as opposed to mandatory. That's why, as part of the deliberations for progressing this, my understanding is just focused on the schools, which was a desire to achieve, and also some due minimum roads which had been identified through by the staff through various submissions from the public through previous forums and letters, that sort of process. So and if you look at what's been achieved, there's a high level of support in principle for the changes, and in many cases they're agreeing, or they even want lower speeds than what was proposed in the due minimum.
Just very quickly, because I know it's getting on. Plans can still be submitted. However, RTCs and RCAs should note the intention from the minister to develop a new rule, as well as the request to wait for this new rule before developing or completing SMPs already under development. Now, this has come from, I've only taken a screen dump, sorry. But the point I'm making, though, is that the intention was to, they're suggesting even that we wait. But we've gone ahead and undertaken the survey and what have you, and so on and so forth. All I'm asking is, are you aware that, are you confident that the regional council's submission is going to be certified by NZTA when they don't have? And I hear what you're saying, Mel, about prior. I know Auckland have done theirs and so on. Wellington have done one and so on and so forth. But we're now after the fact, i.e. the plan has been, if you like, put on hold. So I'm happy to let the motion go forward, let it go, and I'll be voting against.
So I think just to summarise what I think Mel was getting at was that I don't think we're arguing with you around the new government's intention to shake up this space with some new policy or rule. But I think what this report is contemplating is stuff that there is highly likely to be wide community, and I would argue government support for, careful consideration speed limits around our schools and areas where the community have asked for that. And so we're not talking about sort of at the controversial end of speed management here. We're talking about the stuff that it's hard to imagine that even the current government would come out and throw out a notion that we'd be reducing speed around drop-off zones and times around schools. So I think that's why the report is noted. You are correct, that is what the Minister has said, but I would argue that there's not a lot in here that would be controversial in terms of the community, and it's largely the urban areas and the and sort of building up of the the lifestyle block areas and the like, where it's been indicated a desire by the community to better control speed on their narrow country roads. But point taken. Councillor Naylor.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'm quite happy to support the around schools during school hours, but I don't believe that we want permanent 30k zones around schools outside of school hours. And certainly, I'm a bit ambivalent about some of the other streets. We talked about Palmerston Street there. Sure, during shop trading hours, this 30k is probably applicable. Although, it's a bit, when you go to Greymouth, it's bloody frustrating all the time going through those 30k when you could fire a rifle down the street even in the middle of the day. But for the other 16 hours of the day, Palmerston Street, when we drive out of there after a late meeting, there's nobody on that street, and to have a 30k in those hours is just, I think it's going to be more frustrating for people. Sounds good because it's a safety concern, but people are just going to get really, really frustrated with these 30k zones. We've moved on from the horse and cart days, and we've got modern motor vehicles, that are able to pull up pretty quick. They've got all sorts of warnings on them, etc. And I don't buy in. I guess I'm with the new government. I don't buy into these, snail pace speeds when 50k has worked pretty well for us for the last umpteen years.
Okay, thank you. So I think we've got two options here. We can go through this report and make some changes in response to the various points I'm hearing, or we can presumably throw the whole thing out. Councillor Howard.
I'd like to move 1 and 2B. I'd like to commend Mel for his report and for the recommended changes he's suggesting based on the feedback from the survey. I believe they reflect what the community wants. I'm particularly pleased to see Charleston area, those picked up on.
That B talks about any further council amendments, so you're not proposing any further amendment?
No. And it does highlight, you talk about school hours, it's just, it's only 30 during pick up and drop off. That's my reading of the recommendations.
Through the Mayor and CEO, that's correct. There was strong support for the 30k around schools, but only during drop off and pick up time. So the amendments to the existing do minimum is to do just that, have signage that, I'm sorry, I should have actually put a picture in the report, the signage will have the 30-50 sign, and it'll actually have the time of day under the sign.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's move Councillor Howard.
Through yourself, can that apply to something like Palmerston Street as well, or not? That same sort of hours of the day.
Through the chair, it could do.
Because I understand where Mr. Nathan's coming from. When the shops are closed, you get hit by tumbleweed more so than by any other car. So, I just wonder if you could have an 8 to 5 or something, and then time.
Is that something, a variable time on the urban areas, commercial zones, whatever, retail areas, something that's viable?
Through the chair, I'd have to check that, but I believe you could do that, same as you could do it with schools.
Councillor Reedy.
Very quickly, Mayor, are there any costs associated with this if this goes ahead, are there any costs associated with us moving this toward regional council? Do we wait until we get approval, or are we going to go ahead and purchase?
Again, through the chair and the CEO, yes, there are costs, and I've outlined those costs in section 5.8. This council has funding this year, and we've only got 1 month to spend it, so we'll spend as much as we can, subject to council's final approval. To the second part of the question is about the regional council. If you approve the resolution tonight, then this information is fed back to the regional council. Their costs are around reviewing the recommendations from all the road controlling authorities on the coast, and their role is to check for consistency. So their costs are minimal. Once the regional transport committee reviews it and approves it, then the entire West Coast Regional Speed Management Plan has to go to the Director of Land Transport for his for her endorsement. Apologies there.
Councillor Reedy.
With 1 month to go, I can't see us spending any money. Okay, with 1 month to go, we've got 100. We had 162,000 agreed upon. I agree with 5.8. I've read that with 75%. Also 75%. So 162,000 was 25% of what NZTA would put in. The point I'm trying to make from the start was that if that particular 162,000 plus NZTA was under the previous government's speed management plan, now that the current government has cancelled that, I don't know whether or not NZTA are still subsidising 75% of any expenditure that we undertake. So it comes back to my question before: are we going to be subjected to any expenditure as a result of this recommendation when NZTA may not be supporting or paying 75%? That's all I'm asking.
I understand the far rate is confirmed, but I need to understand this activity class.
Through the chair and CEO, there is funding in this year's the 23-24 program that's already been approved and locked in for this year. But just to add to that, what potentially is at risk is funding for the next 3 years, where we have asked for some funding to continue with this project, and we won't know until tomorrow through the budgets.
Just, if I may, just one passing comment, because I really want to get this over with, of course, is that the 162,000, 25% of being BDC share was as a result of the initiative. It wasn't part, from my understanding, it wasn't part and parcel of our triennium funding. This was a one-off opportunity to develop a new speed management plan, which would be supported by NZTA under under the then government's initiative.
Point of order. Understanding orders that we've adopted. I thought we had the first makes a motioner, we seek a seconder, and then we have once around the tables as a response. I'd suggest that Councillor Reed's had lots of opportunities to get his point across.
Yeah, so we just haven't, we're lacking the seconder. That's the problem at this point. So I'm about to test that if there is a seconder and try and find a way forward. So thanks, Councillor Reedy. I think that's what I'm struggling with, is the seconder for Councillor Howard's motion, which is 2B. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Weston.
Just to clarify, it says subject to any further council amendments. There's been some suggested amendments. Are those the amendments we're talking about?
I asked Councillor Howard if she was supported any amendments, and the answer was no. So it's as tabled there at the moment, unless you wish to talk about the variable speeds and different things that have come up in discussion, or else it's, my understanding was you wanted to move it excluding that last 5 words, 6 words.
I believe the one around the early childhood and kindergarten sort of been answered, and I do think that makes sense to review that in the following year to go out for public consultation. That definitely makes sense. One was only was state highway, so that was separate from this, because that was just making a suggestion that we put that through to NZT. So that wasn't under us. So the only thing that's remaining is, should the Palmerston Street have hours? And then I was thinking, what hours would you make that? Would it have to be like 6 to 6 or something like that? Then you maybe also think, well, maybe the most risk might be at night when the few pubs are open. So, and then there's consistency through the coast. So is that really feasible, or is that something that we can put in place at 30k, see how it works, and then it's still open to amendments the following year if we find?
Okay.
Through the chair, the speed management plan as it's written, it does include a clause around review and monitor going forward. So good, thank you for that. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm hearing it says written. We're happy with that. You're moving it as
necessarily convincing argument to against.
Okay, so moved, Howard, seconded Councillor Weston. That council, after considering submissions as summarised in Table A, agrees and adopts the recommended changes detailed in Table A to the do minimum option, as well as to the West Coast Speed Management Plan and Buller District Council maps. Moved, Howard, seconded Weston. All those in favour? What have we got? 2, 3, 4. I'm in favour. 5. Those against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the motion is lost. Is there anyone like to suggest anything else, or leave the matter on the table, or what do we want to do? Councillor Reedy.
Can we leave the matter? Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Can we leave the matter on the table, please?
Okay. Unless I have anyone else wants to move an alternative, that's what we have.
I'd like to hear I've heard Councillor Reedy's reasons against, but I'd like to hear other councillors' reasons for voting against. Maybe it's something that could be put in as an amendment.
So I just before I go to you, Councillor Grafton, what is the implication of, because I'm just conscious that we're one leg of a 3-legged beast in terms of the regional speed management plan, and BDC are not party to that. What happens if the other 2 councils do it and we don't? Where does leaving on the table leave us, I guess, is what my question is.
I have to investigate that further. The resolution was to take this forward as part of a joint initiative to create a West Coast regional speed management plan. There was the alternative just to do it as a district speed management plan. Part of the answer could be to, as currently on the table, leave it on the table, and at a certain time in the future change it to a district speed management plan only.
Okay. Councillor Reedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My objection was simply against not so much the plan itself or the submissions that have been received, which I wholly support. It is the fact that I'm concerned about the money, the expenditure, which doesn't seem to be, which is what we're talking about. We seem to be talking about, you just mentioned before about we're one leg of 3, and then and so on and so forth. My objection is only to do with the money and potential expenditure. That's all. So I'm happy to leave. Whatever you want to do in terms of leaving it on the table is over to you.
Yeah, that's good, thank you. Councillor Sampson?
I think it's essential we make a decision tonight that Mel can go to regional council with the decision. I don't think it's looking good if we can't make decisions, and leaving it on the books, I don't think is an option. And just to carry on, under section B, I understood that we didn't include subject to any further council amendments, and I would be happy with that motion forward with subject to any further council amendments.
We've put that motion and it's been lost.
No, it wasn't included.
What amendments are you suggesting then?
I thought you excluded subject to any further council amendments.
Yeah, because there were none.
Pardon?
Because there were none. What I'm saying is there were no, I asked the room if there was any agreement for any further council amendments, and there were none. That's the challenge. Councillor Naylor.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I think we've reached a point where we're just going to let it lie. The government's maybe tomorrow is coming out with a budget, and they're certainly coming out with a new speed management policy, if you like, and I think it'd be just prudent to do what the minister said and wait, and it'll be on the table till then, and that'll give us a chance to add some of those amendments, and test them out. If we're going to have a time slot for main streets, etc., we can do a bit of work in that in the meantime.
Councillor
I
Howard.
just worry about some of these roads the locals have been asking for ages now, and are considerable hazard. I'm thinking particularly like at Charleston, the community's been asking me there for 3 to 5 years for having the speeds reduced, and when you walk from the camping ground, the community hall down to the bay, you have to walk along the main street, which currently is, I believe, 100 k's, which is ridiculous. So I'm actually against putting this off.
Can I change my vote, or is that too late? Because I'll change it that way, because I'm happy to say that a little bit.
I think we can revisit. We can certainly revisit a decision if councillors have thought about it, and goodness me, we're working for our money tonight.
But we can't even be doing it. The motion's been put, it's lost, time to move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll revisit it.
Yeah, I don't think we can revisit it unless there's some new information comes forward. I'm sympathetic to your view, Councillor Howard. Unfortunately, the room didn't agree. So I think I'm just thinking, is there anything we need to do to give some direction? Because I think we're really advising. What's the timeline of having to advise the RTC of this? When is this meant to be concluded?
I think it's up to them now to get it on, to decide to put it on their agenda. If it lies on the table as per the current resolution, then we've just advised the regional council of this council's decision. Okay, and maybe to add is that if I'm hearing correctly, it's based around waiting for more clarity from the minister on the changes to the setting of speed limits rule.
Yep. Okay, Councillor Fowler, I'm ready to move on.
I was just wondering if we could move B with the amendment of including Kew Road and Abattoir Road at 50 kilometres.
No, we're not going to entertain picking it apart when there were other. Yeah, we've been there. We've had that opportunity, and it was voted not supported.
Next,
yeah, perfect. Thank you. Moving on.
Page 540.
So sorry, I just think we should have a break. We've been going more than 2 hours. So I'm just conscious of that. So I suggest we have a 10-minute adjournment. It's 8:10. We'll come back at 8:20. And we'll be starting at agenda item number 8.
Wasn't the intention. We thought it would drop for 2 days. Yeah, we thought TRA here to go for 2 days. That's why.
Yeah, no,
Still be
totally.
doing that.
Totally.
Might want to
The deadline is old, eh?
might want to mute yourself.
Hi, Colin.
Graham, hey.
How are you?
Hey, I didn't mean to sort of push on too much about Reefton, but I'm just, I just want to go through the processes. That's all.
Yeah,
and
no.
I want your ICB. I don't support or neither not support what that group's trying to do. You know, for the centre, but we've got to just give them some time. That's all I wanted to do.
Yep. No.
And as for the speed management, Joe just mentioned before about Charleston, 100k going through the main drag, but that's not for us to decide. It's a state highway.
Yeah. Still live streaming.
Whoa.
Okay, we will reconvene the meeting. At 8:20. Right, we're up to 8. So I don't think this one's going to take us long, surely. Yes, representation review, which is the governance arrangements for the elections in 2025. This was Douglas's report. He's not here, but I'll take the report as read. The recommendation is effectively exactly what we have now. Are there any? I'll just quickly check if there's any questions out of the paper before we. It's fairly straightforward. And if you read tonight's Westport News, the population in Bulla has grown by about 1,000 people. So actually we're equaling up some of these numbers, assuming some of them made the grand decision to live in Northern Bulla. That helps level up the per councillor head count. So the recommendations are there, which is receiving the report. Sorry, where are we? Pardon, I've got the wrong one. Right. So it's resolving that council adopts a draft proposal for community engagement for Bulla district governance arrangements from the October 2025 train elections for local government, divided into wards, being Seddon Ward, Nanga Hill Ward, Westport Ward. The council would comprise of the mayor and 10 councillors elected as follows: 2 councillors elected by electors in the Seddon Ward, 2 councillors elected by electors of the Nanga Hill Ward, 6 councillors elected by electors of the Westport Ward. There will be an Anangahua Community Board, I think that board is missing from that, comprising the area of the Anangahua Ward. The Anangahua Community Board will comprise 4 elected members and 2 members appointed by the council representing the Anangahua Ward. Okay, that the district and ward boundaries will be as those used for the 2019 triennial elections. And if that for clarity, this is the same governance structure as has been used by the council for the 2019 and 2022 triennial elections. I'll move that way. So seconder, Councillor Grafton. Any discussion on any of that? No. Councillor Reedy.
Just on item E, Mr. Mayor, just says those used for the 2019 triennial elections. Shouldn't it be 2022? Just item 3.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so it should be both 2019 and 2022 triennial elections. So as a no change, okay. Same boundaries. You get that? Yep, cool. So with that minor correction, Councillor Nalon.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just on the spelling of Anangahua, can we get that right in the minutes, please? But also, when you read the report from the Local Government Commission about when Mr. Beaumont was looking for a Punakaiki ward or a Southern ward, if you like, when we went through the hearing, we talked about that not being possible, and then the possibility of a community board, and that's been ruled not possible. But we did some time ago when I was looking after that area, we had a community committee. And so I'd like to see us promote those, in those outlying areas, especially Punakaiki area. And so we had we called for nominations, and we had elections, and we vote. The community out there voted, and so many people on the community committee who met with the councillor who was looking after that ward. So whether it has to come in here or whether that's something we can just do, at any other time. But I think it's really worth considering, given that, they are a community of interest, but with their, 300 odd population, I think 310 in that last time we looked at it, they're never ever going to have a ward. But there's certainly other ways that they can actually have interaction with the council other than a ward or a community board.
Yep. Noted. So this recommendation is a draft proposal that will be going out for community consultation. Is that correct? Mr. Douglas, Mr. Marshall?
Not quite. The intention here is we just make a bit of a statement as to what we think the governance will be for 2025, 6 and feedback on the 5th of July. Then your formal initial proposal will be at the end of July. So you'll then start the statutory process at that point. So that's what this is, we're looking to do. We're not looking to do public meetings or anything like that. We're just looking to run some information as to, hey, this is what we're thinking. Issues such as a community committee that Councillor Nayland wouldn't be covered by this proposal. They would be done by your normal committee structure at each, the next triennial 25 election process.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Everyone clear what we've got on the table then? So I've read it out. So moved and seconded. All those in favour? Any against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Good conversation. Right. Agenda item 9. All holdings cancellation of shares. I wouldn't go away. Mr. Marshall, do you want to, let's just open this, take the report as read. Any questions on this report? Councillor Naylor?
Yes, if Mr. Marshall could tell us in layman's terms, if you like, or simple language, what it actually means.
Yep. Thank you. I'll see if I can do that. Look, in essence, the two companies did a transaction to purchase the land. They've used cash that was sitting in West Reef. Normally it would have been done by holdings. What they're just doing now is they're saying we've completed the transaction. We don't need this debt and share. We just cancel the debt and cancel the shares through the two companies. So it's the type of thing. It's very much a technical sort of process, mechanical in nature. It doesn't impact on us. And as I say, the recommendation is saying, well, look, we support it. There's no big deal here. To some degree, as I say, does it really need to be done? Well, you can argue that both ways. The company thinks it's better for their own structures. When I say company, it's holdings, better for their internal structure. So I don't see any reason why we would get into a debate over that. So it's just as I say, just a mechanical transaction occurring.
And the reason it's here is because of a simple interpretation of their board charter, Council BHL charter, that says they would advise or something. Consult, whatever.
Yes, but because I initially looked at it and did think to myself, oh, really, do we need to worry about this? When you look at the chart, when you okay, to be sort of prudent, we'll just make this recommendation.
All good, Councillor Reedy.
I'll move.
Thank you. I missed your hand before too.
That's okay.
Beg your pardon. You're seconding, so moved. Councillor Reedy seconding. Councillor O'Keefe, that council advised BHL that in regard to the purchase of land for the proposed yard development, that they support the transaction to cancel shares held by BHL in West Reef Services Limited and forgiveness of debt held by West Reef Services Limited in Buller Holdings Limited. Moved, Reedy, seconded. O'Keefe. All those in favour? Any against? That's carried unanimous. Thank you. Okay, agenda item 10 now, where hopefully Mr. Rick Barry is going to be available to talk to this. This, beg your pardon, is the Campground project update for Reefton as kicked into gear by some better off funding that this council allocated. What are they asking us for here? So there's some quite meaty recommendations here, and it's around, is Rick on yet or not? Right. So
Yep,
the recommendation,
I'm here.
yes. So the recommendations are there around. Councillor Nylon, do you want to?
Can I just make a statement, Mr. Mayor? By virtue of the fact that I'm the council appointee on the Reefton Domain and Reserves Subcommittee, I've taken over as the project lead on this project because it's their project, if you like. So, given that I was a council appointee, I don't think I've got any conflict of interest, and I intend to take part in the debate and vote on it.
Oh, thank you. So the recommendation, before I go to Rick, is just seeking council approval. The project group's proposed public notice and proceed to consultation as per the lawyer's recommendation outlined in the report, seeking us to approve the project group to advance funding discussions with external funders subject to any funding agreement approval being contingent upon appropriate legal advice and formal council approval. And 3, agreeing to make timely formal decisions on consulted matters following the public notice consultation process. And I think that is driven by the need to keep this project moving along. My understanding of the project is there is quite a rapid development in Reefton from the mining sector that are going to need some accommodation. Rick, do you have anything you want to add, or we open it up for questions from councillors?
Probably, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Yeah, so probably just point 3, just to clarify that there's more information in the report that details that recommendation. So if anyone's got any questions, the detail is in the report, but I can go over it again if need be.
Okay, thank you. And I didn't actually introduce Rick. So Rick is contracting as project manager to the Reserve Committee. Probably known to most of you, but just clarifying that. Any questions on this paper? Councillor O'Keefe.
Oh, sorry, just a little bit off topic, if I'm allowed. In the last year, just out of interest, what's the accommodation rate for the campground? How many stays have you had? Just out of interest.
Yeah, I don't have that information in front of me, but you know, we are getting regular reports, but I don't actually have that information at the tip of my tongue. Sorry.
What were you driving at?
Oh, I'm just in comparison to other camping grounds in the area. Yeah, just because it's.
So could we summarise that by saying, is the camp running profitably and successfully, Graham?
Yeah.
It is, and you know, been the army there that for 3 weeks booked the whole camping ground out, which is great, you know, for the shoulder of the season. But during the peak of the season, we were very, very full. When the motorhome people were there, they came in their droves, you know, for the 4-day event. So some of them came early, and the couple of days before that event, we were absolutely chocker. And then they had to leave the race course, and a lot of them wanted to stay around in the area. So we were chocker again. And this weekend, King's birthday weekend, every cabin's booked out. So we've been going really, really well the last couple of years, actually.
And it's important to note that's the existing camp. So really this project is more around augmenting that with some new buildings that would in all likelihood be subject to a fairly decent sort of occupancy arrangement with a potential funder or the like may have some use for the camp at periods of time.
And no, there's been a bit of noise on social networks about mining companies, and you know, if you look at the Aussie situation where the mining company will contract a firm and they'll come in and build a town, if you like, out in the desert, and so they make a contribution, and then when the mine finishes, the people take the town away. so people are saying, well, why is the camping ground, why is the council involved in building mining accommodation? But of course, you know, our aim is that once the mining terminates, and the real need at the moment is in February, they intend starting to build the processing plant. So there'll be a whole lot of workers come in just for that, and then they'll settle into the 10-year mining, and demand may fluctuate in those cabins. And obviously, you know, when people go away, we'll be able to rent them out to normal mums and dads with families, etc. But once the mining's finished, then those cabins will remain in the camping ground, and that's the long-term benefit to the camping ground. And so, in a way, the mining company, by renting them out, if you like, in the next maybe 10 years, will end up paying for these units. And so they are leaving something in the town, and that's a sort of a benefit that can be measured.
I think it's an excellent project, just for the record. Councillor Fowler, please.
I just had a question about page 548. It says the lawyers recommend council make formal decisions on the following matters, A to F. Is that council as in council staff or council round the table council?
That is the elected council. So those are that leads back to the recommendation point 3.
Mm-hmm.
So that's exactly the detail that council needs to consider. Are those points? They're all fairly stock standard as far as the process goes, as far as the particular pieces of legislation, which are the campground regulations and the Reserve Management Act. So the Reserve Act.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is that something we're making a decision on now, or is it coming back to the council after it's gone out for consultation or whatever?
I suppose my intent with including it as detail was that the council had time to read that and to feel comfortable with the fact that they would deal with that in a timely manner, as I think the wording I put, because if we want to move on this in the time frame that the potential external funders would like us to, then the council needs to be aware that those decisions need to be made. So if there is a feeling of good support, then I don't think we're going to have a problem. But if there is some conflict, then we probably better to hear about that tonight.
Okay, thank you.
So before I go to you, Colin, just to tease that out. So just my understanding is that the first step is public consultation process via a public notice that's here somewhere. And then that, may or may not inform some of those next steps. But really what Mr. Murray is saying is there any game stoppers there around this table, presuming that there's no game stoppers coming out of public consultation? Is that a fair sort of summary of where we're at?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, we don't know what we're going to get from submissions, and I totally understand that can't be foreseen at this stage. But the intent of the recommendation 3 is that it's dealt with in a timely manner. That there are certain aspects that need to be considered, and council can always decide that that they'll deal with those points as they will. I'm not asking them to have the answers tonight. I'm just saying that they will consult, make the timely formal decisions on those matters.
Yep. Thank you. That's clear. Councillor Reedy, you had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through the Mayor. Hey, thanks, Rick, for the paper. I've only got questions. I support what we're going through. So the the questions that I have are that when we agreed on the 300,000 from the Better Off funding, it was for cabins. Now I see we're talking about transportable cabins, which is a totally different, according to the regulations, a totally different set of accommodation. And so I'm just not sure at the moment what support we have from the current campground manager or owner. I'm not sure what manager, because we then, as far as FVM are concerned, we have to declare the site as a relocatable home park rather than a camping ground. And so I'm just not sure of where we stand on this, because, as I say, we said to the government we were using this money for cabins, and now we've gone on to relocatable home park, a totally different subject matter, as I say. I'm concerned about we're saying that there's no anticipated cost to the ratepayer, yet this has to be reticulated, sewerage and what have you, where I'm concerned about the risk to the ratepayer for any potential costs. But just coming back to my original question, Rick, just in terms of the relocatable home park.
So I can answer that pretty clearly for you, Colin. I think the relocatable home park is part of the New Zealand campground regulations. It's their terminology. It's the terminology that is used for that type of accommodation in a motor camp. What they are asking for is that cabins, or in the term that they use, they don't use the term cabins, they use relocatable home park, are identified within the camping site as opposed to tent sites, as opposed to mobile home areas or caravan areas. So it's just a part of the regulations that requires the camp to identify that area. So the term of the relocatable home park is just in the Act. If you read the Act, it's in there. So that's why the lawyers have recommended that terminology is used.
Yeah, may I please, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah, I don't want to labour the fact, but there is definitely a differentiation between relocatable homes and cabins. So in the legislation, because I had a look at it the other night, as you'd expect, but I'm just confused. That's all, in terms of the fact that we have to have a separate site, if you like, for these relocatable homes, and I'm just not aware. I'm just not sure of the cost to the ratepayer as a result of this. They've got to be totally separated, as I say, from the campground itself. But please correct me if I'm wrong there, Rick, because I do favour what you're doing.
The intent for the essential services is all part and parcel of the initial 300,000 funding. So if you read the detail in the report, I thought it clearly stated that that is part of the process, is to put in the sewer, the water, the mains water, sewer and power, plus car parks and roading access. So and lighting. So there will be the intent is there won't be any burden on the ratepayers as far as the project's concerned, because the external funding will be what will pay for the cabins, and any balance left in the initial 300,000 will just roll into that fund. The other decision, I suppose, that council might want to consider is if the external funding didn't come to light, then potentially whatever is done now is also setting up the camp for cabins anyway. It's not. I wouldn't have thought it is wasted effort or money, given that it's come from central government.
Righto, thanks, Rick. Unless you got something really gold, I'm going to move 1, 2, and 3.
Oh, just one quick silly question, maybe. Why does it have to go out to consultation if it's all external funding?
So that'll be to do with the use of the reserve, I suspect.
Correct.
Yep. Sure. So it's
it's the land. It's the type of land it's sitting on.
Yep. So it's just to meet that obligation. Okay. So with that, unless there's a burning question, I'm happy to move 1 through 3. I read them out more or less before. as written. Is there a seconder? Deputy Mayor Basher. Any further discussion on that? All those in favour? Any against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thanks, Rick. Sorry.
Thank you very much. Have a good night, everyone.
Cheers. Okay, agenda item 11, Mayor's report. It's a fairly light report because I didn't think I was going to be here to talk to it. Any questions out of that report? And we'll deal with correspondence as all as one. Okay, someone like to move that we, or is there anything anyone wants to direct additional correspondence for or anything? I needed to draw your attention to from memory. Probably only other update will be next month's one anyway, but Mayor's Task Force for Jobs, the contract has come through for signing for the next financial year's funding. So is that what it is? Next financial year? I think it is. Yeah. So that will be that's good news. We've met the criteria, and it's been quite a tweak to the scheme, but the feeling from the Julie Moore and the REAP team are that they can meet the new obligations, and so we're likely, or we will. It's been approved as far as I know to sign to receive that funding. Is that a hand up, Councillor Eadie, or?
Oh, yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question for information. The Mayor's Task Force for Jobs, is this an ongoing government initiative that has been picked up by the new government?
Yeah, so they've rolled it forward for like only another year, I think.
Okay. Yep.
But it's so yeah, beyond that. So the last government confirmed it for 2 years, of which 1 year is now in the new government, and they're not pulling that funding. And like I say, we've got a contract in front of us. I think it's just for the coming financial year. I don't think it goes beyond that, any promises. But the indications are from MSD, who are the ultimate holder of that purse, that my understanding is that current minister is quite satisfied with what that program is achieving generally across the country. So yeah, time will tell. Everything's on the table at that end, I think, as well. Any other questions, or would someone like to move the 1 and 2? Move Councillor Weston, seconded Councillor O'Keefe. Now we're receiving the Mayor's report for discussion and information, and noting the inward and outward correspondence, and that's it. All those in favour? Any against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Chief Executive Officer's report. Simon, anything you wish to bring anyone's attention?
Happy to take questions.
Any questions on the Chief Executive's report? Okay, so we're receiving that for information. Someone want to move? Who hasn't moved anything? Councillor Webb. Do you want to get in the agenda? You'd like to move? Yeah, you would. Yeah. Councillor Webb moving. Second, Councillor Fowler.
Otherwise, you've been rude.
Open that for any further discussion. Last chance. Okay, all those in favour? Any against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, let's do these portfolio leads by exception. So don't feel obligated if you haven't got anything. So these are the verbal updates from our various things we're all on. Ngangahua Community Board, Councillor Webb.
I'll defer that to Councillor Naylon as he chaired the last meeting.
Of course he did. Apologies for that.
Sorry, I was on holiday.
Councillor Naylon.
Yep. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Well, I guess the major discussion point we've already dealt with in terms of the old building, but and we did have a delegation from ex-councillor Bowden, who gave us a bit of an update on what's happening in all the community organisations that he's involved with. And so we've decided that we're going to make that a regular feature, and that's part of our terms of reference, etc. So we're going to get people in and at each meeting and give us a bit of an update of what's happening around the community. We managed to give out some grants and you'll all be pleased to know that the Anangahoa Hall Committee, who got $5,000 from the community grants and had a $6,970 project, we gave them the other $1,970. So that project can be completed. We gave some money to Who Cares. And for those of you that might have sat round the old Anangahoa County Council table that was down in Westport, we've decided to take that extension off and remodel the table so it better suits the room down there for the community board. So that work's underway as part of our grant. And we've just, I think Ms. Trigg talked about it earlier on, as a potential meeting space. We found another room in that building down the Plunkett room end, which we're in the process of clearing out, and that will be available for use. And we've put our submission into the enhanced annual plan.
Good work, thank you. Any questions for Councillor Nalon, Acting Chair? Nope, okay, moving on. Graham, anything in regulatory environment planning?
We've had a resource consent hearing, and we've got another couple that are coming up, mainly subdivisions that are happening around the district. And I also was asked to chair a pre-hearing meeting for the TTPP plan for the Alma Road, the rezoning up there. So we've had a bit of opposition, if you like, to that rezoning from the Rifle Club, the Pistol Club, and for the rifle range up there. So there was a bit of late notice, which is of concern to some of the submitters that actually appeared there, and so there's a definite that we'll have a second pre-hearing meeting for there, and we're hoping that a lot more of the residents of that area come along. If you see the council submission, BDC submission, they've actually pulled back on some of that area up there that they were asking to be rezoned residential. So I'm not sure how that's going to affect your application and for the fast tracking, but it'll all just play out. One thing that did come to the fore there with regards to the master planning for Westport, that in an ideal world that might have been done before the new district plan changes were proposed, and so we're a little bit out of sync there, and so even when the plan is finalised, there may have to be some changes depending on what the outcome of the master plan is. In terms of liquor licensing, we've got some hearings coming up. We should have had one by now, and that got delayed because the applicant's legal people weren't ready, and then was going to be next on the 10th of June. And then ex-councillor Rutherford's unavailable for that day. So given that we've only got 3 committee members and we need 3 for a hearing, it might be timely if we actually got some more appointees. So anybody interested, see Mr. Riley about putting your interests forward in that respect. And we've also had ex-council staff member Terry Archer has indicated that he's resigning from the committee out of frustration because we don't have a local alcohol policy. And so a lot of the decisions that we've had to make have been further complicated by the fact that we don't have a local alcohol policy. And maybe that's something that we need to highlight, given now that the appeal process that was holding them all up by the big liquor outlets and the supermarkets, that has now ended, so they can no longer appeal these local alcohol policies. So it should be rather straightforward to go through. We did talk about going in with the other 2 districts and forming a West Coast one, but there's difficulties in that as well. And we just look at the TTPP when you're trying to get something off the ground. So just flagging that's something that I think we should be looking at.
That's something you can work on with the GM, Nathan.
Yeah.
To figure out timing and staff resource and whatever in conjunction with him as to how that might be brought forward. Council. And just a quick follow-up on the RMA, what do we call it, fast track. I understand the actual one that was submitted was the cut down version in the end because there was issues with some of the other stuff that meant it didn't qualify. So that's all, should be all in line with where we were heading. Any questions for Graham on anything there? Okay, thank you. Moving on, community services, councillors Howard and Violet.
We met regarding the grants, so staff are going to update and revamp the grants website page. We looked at the dates and we're looking to more align with the winter and summer programs of community groups. So we're proposing that the funding rounds be closing in August for the first round and in March for the second round. So decisions are out for a bit more timely spend around the seasons. And bringing in more accountability for all community funding. So there'll be the long-term plan funding of community facilities as well as the community grants and revitalisation grants, etc. Councillor Violet?
The only thing I'll add is that in the last month, attended the job fair with the mayor. So lots of businesses and different organisations had stalls to encourage youth to, look at the options for jobs on the West Coast. So that was a really cool event to go to and lots of participation.
Excellent.
And the other information I was circulated emails about attending the destination management meeting, and I emailed out a stakeholder list which can be, if I get feedback, I can feed it back on to them.
Yep, that was actually really good. Thank you. Any other questions for either councillor there? Nope. Councillor Weston and Grafton, infrastructure?
No, we've had nothing since last.
Cool.
I'm supposed to go for a wastewater visit, but we
were guilty.
Yeah, the mayor cancelled it. Cancelled the field trip. Okay, cool. Thank you. Corporate policy, corporate planning, councillors Reedy and Sampson. Anything to update there? Councillor Reedy?
No comment, thanks.
Thank you. Good to hear that portfolio is going well. Smaller rural communities, councillors O'Keefe and Webb.
Well, I'll just kick off. It's been a little bit tricky to connect with old Linda because she's been away on holiday.
All right.
But there is definitely, and unfortunately, I'm going to be away. I've been meaning to get to an ICB meeting, but I'm away in July, and then the next one's in September. So I've got you booked in. As far as the Northern Buller goes, I've been working with my subcommittees around training and governance. A few people in the area had attended the DWC governance course, and it's been really fantastic to see people really taking that to the next level and changing their meeting structures for the better. It's been really awesome. Canberra Community Action Northern Buller, very early June, they're gonna find out if they've won their bid for partnership. I've also teamed up with Jessie Creedmoor, a little bit of direction and help around planning. We've now linked in with Healthy Homes, Art Trails, Sports Tasman, secured some laser tag, all kinds of cool stuff coming our way. Also involved with Charming Creek, we're starting to work on how we're going to address that. Also the Chasm Creek opening, and 36 geo students from Leyland College from Nelson. They were studying from source to sea. That was pretty cool to meet all them. Also, myself, Rosalie and Graham have sort of just been starting negotiations with Hector Knucklewall water supply. It's going to be a bit of a journey around that. And also working with Rob Poole on the Mokanui TIF funding, the Campground new septic tank. That's all a go. And about Mokanui water supply as well. And just helping with civil defence planning for Ngāpuawa, Hector, Granity and Millerton. We're at draft stage. That's it. That's all here.
Thank you. Any questions for that or anything you want to add, Linda? Oh, probably not. You've been away. Cool. Thank you. Righto. Moving on is iwi relations is absent. Titai Apogni plan. So there was a little bit in my report, and the next meeting of TTPP committee is in Westport on the 19th of June. I'll be chairing that, I understand, because I think Chair Williams is unavailable for that meeting. So that is that, and that's that'll be open to the public if anyone wants to attend that. Anything to add to TDPP, Graham?
No, nothing.
Cool. Joint Committee Westport Rating District. This might be one you want to have a go at, Councillor Reedy or Howard.
I think you've sorry, Mr. Mayor.
It's all yours.
I think you've covered that off in your mayor's correspondence. I've got nothing more to. Your mayor's report. Apologies. I don't think there's anything more to be covered up on that.
No, thank you.
They did have a very good presentation, and it was in public. And they did say at the meeting that their PowerPoint presentation was going to be on the website. I looked this morning. As of yet, it's not there. I think for the public, it summarised very good where we've come to from here and what the plans are. So maybe I can follow up with them to check when they're going to put on the website and maybe get a copy that we can distribute to councillors.
I've got a funny, I think someone told me that they have put it up, but it did sound like it was in a bit of a weird place.
Oh, I spent about half an hour and couldn't find it.
Okay, so maybe I'm wrong. I could be thinking that's something else.
I'll
A
follow
lot
up.
of people tell me a lot of things. Okay, yep, you can follow up and circulate the link or whatever if that's useful. Okay, health localities, Councillor Nailon.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. At the moment, Kevin has been the chair of the localities project, and by virtue of the fact that he's the independent chair of the PHO Board of Trustees, and he's resigned from that position, and the applications for replacement chairpersons closed today. So by the end of June, Kevin will have vacated the PHO position, and by virtue of that, he'll vacate the localities chair. So they're looking for a new chair at the moment amongst those that are, on that governance group. We're still carrying on. The government's indicated that, they've stopped the rollout, as I mentioned before, but they still haven't pulled the pin on us, and whether they will or not, that's a moot point with some of us on the group. But yeah, we're just trucking along. They did come up, to their credit, Kevin brought a team up. It's the localities as all the health groups, if you like, Te Whara Ora, Public Health, and PHO, and Potini Waiora. So they came up en masse yesterday and met in Reefton with the Reefton Health Action Group, and just to see what sort of home-based services are required in Reefton and where we go now that the closure of Zyman's been confirmed. So part of that exercise is to try and map out what primary health services might look like on the West Coast in the next few years, and we've got till June next year to come up with sort of a bit of a plan for that. So that's where we're at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on that? Councillor Reedy?
Yeah, just regarding Simon House, I know there's been some, I appreciate what the old District Health Board has done in terms of Simon House, but there was some interest, Graham, through the chair, Graham, in terms of the community getting involved. Is that rolling forward or not?
Yeah. Actually, I neglected that in the Nangahua community board. So the community board's decided it will take some active involvement in that. And the group met yesterday, as I said, and then there was a bit of a group meeting after the localities people left. And it looks like that we might try and get other people involved, so get a sort of a steering committee and just to see what's out there. And obviously the intention is to go to the nth degree with all the possible other options. We were told in no uncertain terms yesterday that it's closed and that's it, that decision won't be revisited. So now we've got to look at other options. And I think we owe it to the people of Reefton to actually explore those to the nth degree. And it may be we get an outcome of community involvement, or it may be that we can't go any further. But we're going to look at every option that's on the table.
Just quickly on that, Graham, was there an indication that there's access available to the community, to the building and facilities, or is that on the table, or not talking about that yet?
The people that were at the meeting, and I guess the highest one in that respect was the Northern manager, Helen Gillespie, and she's not in a position to give any answers to that. So we're not sort of pursuing that at the moment. We're looking at the options, and then if there's a viable option with after a feasibility business case, if you like, then we'll probably go and visit the owners of the building and see what can happen. But at the moment, the Presbyterian support have come in to Reefton, and so they're running sessions in the lounge in Zyman House, and Te Whare Ora have given that at no charge at the moment, and they've got a dinner. And a lunch dinner next on the 5th, I think, 5th of June at the Reefton Working Men's Club, to get people in to say, well, this is what we've got on offer, free of charge, if you like, and in terms of a bit of respite care, a bit of socialising, etc., for those that are stuck at home. Yeah.
Good, thank you. Okay, Regional Transport Committee. Cool.
Still haven't had a meeting.
Still nothing. Okay. Road safety.
The West Coast Road Safety Committee had a meeting last week before, and it was a bit concerning with the recent public service cuts and stuff like that. ACC are looking at cutting their 12 different areas. Like we've dealt by Nelson, Marlborough, West Coast, and they're looking at cutting down to 6. And as far as Jennifer Harris was concerned, she's been brilliant. She said that as usual, the little communities may miss out on these things. And it looks like the funding for this whole West Coast Road Safety Committee is under threat as well. So they're not quite too sure where they're going to go with this. So very concerning.
All right, noted. Nothing further there. Okay, so I move that council receive verbal updates from the chairs and council representatives for information. Seconded, Deputy Bashir. All those in favour? Any against? That's carried unanimously. Public forum response. So Alan Donaldson, come and talked about the North Branch. I can't remember now what the status of that is in terms of our plans or funding, or is useful, is it? Yeah. Do you want to give us, is it part of the EAP or not? Or
thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I can comment, I would certainly volunteer Infrastructure Services to furnish a report to council with an update on that what is at the moment a proof of concept idea of what the North Branch could offer for the resilience of Westport Water, and if not June, July would be a suitable time frame. That will give staff the opportunity to provide a summary of what has happened and what the options may be going forward, with a view to potentially a long-term plan projection. It's not something you would consider putting an answer in the plan, I wouldn't think.
yeah, so would said report deal with something broader than the North Branch, or just that?
I would focus it on resilience options for Westport. That would include that particular matter would be the subject of the report. There are other initiatives we're obviously doing with respect to resilience concepts, but that specific one, I think would warrant its own summary for council to understand the status.
Okay. Councillors, for one of the outcomes of a public forum is we can direct a report to come. It sounds like it's coming anyway. But so are we comfortable? Are we asking our staff to bring a Westport Resilience Options Water update report to, I'm suggesting, the July meeting? And that, so that's, I think we'll make it July month because June's already stacking up.
Indicating that the North Branch we would like.
Yeah, so the North Branch will be inclusive. So I'll draft a reply along the lines of that a report will be coming to council in July on resilience options for Westport Water, and this will include the latest updates on options for the North Branch. Is that an accurate statement? Everyone happy with that? Is there a response?
Just, Mr. Mayor, that might be a tight time frame given the size of the North Branch project. So I'd be happy I want it to come, but if it's not ready for July, that's fine. Let's get it in August. Yeah.
It's July. Yeah. I won't put a date on it then. I'll just say, Councillor Reedy.
Does it have any impact, Mr. Mayor? Thank you. On the EAP for 24-25.
So no, you might not have been able to hear Mike. Mr. Duff indicated it's unlikely to be part of this EAP.
Okay.
This is probably helping to inform LTP conversations. Would that be an accurate statement? Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. Right, I can draft a reply that's fine with that, and I think we all want that anyway. Everyone cool with that? Right. So we need to. One last quick thing. I just want to quick recommend resolution, if you like, around. We need to move the Risk and Audit Committee meeting that is currently scheduled for the 12th of June to the 26th of June. So we're still keeping it within that month. That's largely driven by the onboarding of the new CFO, and it just coincides within about a week of him arriving. It seems to make sense that we push that out to just help balance the workload in that department. So if everyone's happy with that, there's already a workshop scheduled for that day ahead of the council meeting. So that is the same day of council. And so there's already a block in your calendar. That workshop was currently unallocated. So I'm suggesting we turn that into a regular RAC meeting just a couple of weeks later than what we were planned up until now, just to facilitate that staff resource. Is everyone comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Okay, we move that way. Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Okay, so we can close. Oh no, we need to move into public excluded before we close this bit. Where am I now? No. Oh, is this still, yeah, okay. So yes, so it is important to note, as I mentioned, we do have a new CFO, and I think that media went out today, naming Mr. Paul Newman as our new appointee into that role, and I think it's timely to acknowledge the support we've had as from Douglas Marshall fulfilling the CFO role for not sure how long now, but it's 2 years. So you just wanted to acknowledge Douglas's contribution in the public part of the meeting, and he will be finishing up within the next week. I think it is pretty much, and handing over to Paul when he comes to the district. So intros when required. Councillor Reedy.
You are correct, Mr. Mayor. Thank you to the Mr. Newman as CFO. My understanding is he is Corporate Services Manager. So can we have a correct position title, please? Corporate Services Manager, CSM or CFO?
He is Corporate Services Manager, but he is the CFO as well, but his title is Corporate Services Manager.
Okay, that's fine. And he takes in the role of the CFO function.
Yes.
Correct. Okay.
Thank you for that correction. It wasn't one I'd picked up on. So that's all good.
Yep.
Okay, so we just need to resolve now that we move into public excluded. Where am I? Where is it? I'm not on the right page. There we are. And so this is resolve the publicly excluded from the following parts and proceedings of this meeting to talk about public excluded 2, delivery of local public services for the reasons under Lagoima schedule section 7 listed there. Protecting information we're making available of the information would be likely to unreasonably prejudice the commercial position of the person or who supplied the subject of the information. Enable council holding information to carry out without prejudice or disadvantage commercial activities, and enable council holding information to carry on without prejudice or disadvantage any commercial negotiations. I'll move that way. Seconder, Councillor O'Keefe. Any discussion on that? All those in favour? Any against? That's carried unanimously. So we're in public excluded, and we will stop.